2026 at 6:30, and this meeting of Montpelier City Council is called to order. Before we get down to business, I'll give us all an opportunity to come fully into this place. If you'd like to join me, I'm going to put both of my feet on the floor. I'm going to take a few deep breaths and just be here in the room for a minute. I'm going to start us off with just a couple of short quotes. The first one is from Helen Keller. Alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. The second is from Coretta Scott King. The greatness of a community is measured by the compassionate actions of its members. All right, on to item 2, meeting logistics and remote instructions. Please display your first and last name if you're joining us remotely. When you are speaking, whether in the room or remotely, please state your name and where you live. Please keep your comments to about, the allotted time for whatever it is on the agenda so that others have the opportunity to speak. If you have several questions, please ask them together. Focus your comments on the agenda item under discussion. Direct your remarks towards policies, decisions, and ideas, not individuals. Avoid comments about a person's character or intent. Wait to be recognized by the mayor before speaking. And please follow the rules of procedure indicated in the packet, which guide how the meeting is conducted and may be applied as needed to maintain orderly discussion, and also may be readopted tonight. With that, we're going to move on to item number 3, to approve the agenda. If there is no objection, we will consider the agenda approved by unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Moving on to number 4, we're just sailing along. I think we're about 25 seconds in. This is great. All right. So we are going to start out tonight with a couple of commendations and just sort of recognition and celebration of folks in our community. And it was around their actions and our community in general that I was inspired to choose those quotes that we started off with. The first one, on June 24th, a motorcyclist crashed on Lower State Street near Junction Road, suffering injuries that put his life at immediate risk. Louis Pregent, who is here with us in the room tonight, didn't wait for help to arrive. He got down beside a stranger and applied an improvised tourniquet, working to stop life-threatening bleeding before anyone in uniform was even on scene. Shortly thereafter, Corporal Jonathan Bullard arrived, assessed the injury, and replaced the improvised tourniquet with a department-issued one, buying time that was needed until EMS could take over. Corporal Bullard is one of MPD's own tactical combat casualty care instructors, the officer who trains his colleagues in exactly this type of hemorrhage control. On June 24th, he didn't just teach it, he did it. He also had the equipment that was needed to do it. Emergency physicians later told the department that this patient survived in real part because of what happened in those first few minutes on Lower State Street. A citizen who acted and an officer who was ready. And tonight, on behalf of the city of Montpelier, I want to recognize Louis Pregent and Corporal Jonathan Bullard for the life-saving awards that they've earned. One stranger's willingness to help and one officer's training and professionalism gave a man his life back. Thank you very much. I'd like to shake your hand. Number 5. Would anyone like to make a comment on this item? Are you, I see nodding. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. You're also welcome to make a comment. The interim chief is also welcome to make a comment. Great. Thank you again. All right, moving on to number 5, recognizing downtown business achievements. Now, in July of 2023, I don't have to remind everybody, but exactly 3 years and 10 days ago, our town flooded. And everyone here knows what that meant to our town and our businesses and to our community as a whole. Now, nationally, FEMA estimates that 40% of small businesses hit by a disaster never reopen. I want to say that again. FEMA estimates that 40% of businesses that are hit by a disaster never reopen. Here in our town, according to Montpelier Alive, about 90% of our business owners chose to rebuild and reopen their doors to a downtown that I think we all agree badly needed them. One of those business owners is Sindra Conason, who was 68 years old at the time. And the flood destroyed the Quirky Pet. Is everybody familiar with where that is? Yeah, of course you are. And it had taken her over a decade to build it, and basically overnight the whole thing was ruined. And at an age where many people would have called it quits, she, like so many others on State and Main and in our downtown, chose to stay and chose to rebuild. Now this month, the Quirky Pet was named one of only 9 America's coolest pet businesses in the entire country by Pets Plus magazine. It's a national industry honor, and it's now in its 10th year. And so tonight, on behalf of the city of Montpelier, I want to recognize Sindra and Joshi. Is Joshi here? Joshi. I want to recognize Sindra and Joshi of the Quirky Pet for this achievement. It belongs to both of them, but it also belongs to all of us and to a downtown that refused to let a flood have the last word for us. So thank you, Sindra. Thank you, Joshi, for your commitment to our community. We are all richer for you being here. Would anyone like to say anything about Sindra, Joshi, the Quirky Pet, or any of the businesses in town? Go ahead, Carlton. I'll give you 1 minute.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say this is really, really cool because Quirky Pets was the first place that I went to help during the flood. The capstone was putting there was a car at on the top back up once everything was done. They had some birds that needed to be rescued as well, and I helped move those. So it's really cool to see this, closed circle and a happy ending. Bye.
Thank you, Carlton. I just want to put a kind of button on the opening couple things here. Both of these stories tonight reflect sides of the same kind of story. Bystanders who have the heart and the wherewithal to jump in right when they're needed. Trained professionals who have the right tools and the right skills to respond. And shop owners who don't let natural disasters keep us down. Individual preparedness adds up to community preparedness. Individual resolve to act adds up to community resolve to act, and individual resilience adds up to community resilience. That's our community showing its work. So thank you to all the bystanders, all the trained professionals, all the business owners, and everyone else that show up to make Montpelier the community that we are. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to take another breath. Thanks. All right, now we're going to move on to the first decision item of the agenda, item number 6, the rules of procedure. Ms. Curry, would you like to tee this up for us?
Good. So we've had several conversations with the council to identify updates to your rules of procedure, which govern the norms that you choose to have and work under as a board, to set expectations for your meetings and all that's related to those. These are an element that are required in the city charter and in the Vermont Open Meetings Law that gives latitude to boards to decide, how much or how little you wish to express in those rules. We had a number of conversations. We looked at a couple of different examples. Based on your input, I have refine these draft rules of procedure in front of you. I used the Vermont League of Cities and Towns format as a starting place. We did not include all sections or all elements of those. And I received a number of comments from many of you on how to improve and finalize these. And so the discussion and request in front of you tonight is to finalize these rules of procedure that will govern, the conduct of your meetings moving forward, and to repeal any prior policies or form of rules of procedure that have been in place and replace them with these in front of you. There are a couple of outstanding questions that I identified in the memo that I think we just need to figure out where the majority or the consensus lies in order to finalize them, that I have called out. Those are related to confirmation of the quorum, the consent agenda, any durations you want to put on the time, and then council's comfort level with discretion given to the chair as spelled out in these rules to manage the conduct of the meeting. And again, the chair can be the mayor, or it can be the parliamentarian, or it can be the president, depending on who is serving in that role at any given time. So I will stop there and see if there's any other general questions anyone has. Otherwise, we can kind of walk through these outstanding things so we can finalize these.
Before we move forward, just to a refresher, what we had done last time and what we're still working under, as far as I understand, is that we're going to have clarifying questions about the topic. Then we will have public comment, a motion, discussion and debate, and then, I mean, if there is a motion, then that'll be the order of things. Okay, so first we're in clarifying questions and comments. Are there any? Yes, Councilor Brown.
About the, what's proposed in the rules of procedure?
Oh, use your microphone, please.
I'm sorry. Are you asking for questions or comments about what's proposed in the rules of procedure?
Yes, are there,
Okay.
before we get into discussion and debate about what we would like,
Oh,
are there
well
any
then.
just clarifying questions
Oh.
about what it is that we're doing?
Nope.
Right, I think that allows our discussion and debate to be informed by whatever the public may have to say. This is not general business and appearances, so there will be 2 minutes allowed on agenda items. When we get to general business and appearances after the break, there'll be 5 minutes afforded for that. That is what we have been doing, and so we're sticking to that for this meeting until it gets changed. Seeing no questions or comments from council before we start, is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this topic before we go into discussion and debate? Not seeing any in the room, not seeing any online. Great, all right.
I might just seek some additional clarification. So there was some email back and forth between Carrie and the mayor and, Commissioner Counselor Brown and the mayor and I, related to the quorum required for this. This goes back to the conversation we have where, the quorum is what the number that you need to meet. And then you also need the number to transact business, which we had some discussions about at times when there were missing counselors about what that number is. Counselor Sheridan was insistent the number is 4. I agree with Counselor Sheridan. I sought legal advice around this, both from our city attorney, Mike Tarrant, and VLCT in terms of the practice, because of the way that the statute is structured, that whenever there is joint authority given to a board of more than of 3 or more, that the majority is required to act. And so you need quorum to conduct any business, and meet is 4. That is your majority of 7. And then to actually transact any business, that is also 4. And so, we ran into some conversation around this relative to when you had 5 members. Does that mean only 3 had to vote on something? The interpretation from the attorneys that I agree with is you need 4 votes. So there is a situation where you could have only 4 meeting and be able to conduct business, and you will need every vote to pass. So I know we had some discussion of this over
Yes.
email, so I wanted to bring it.
It's fine. I have no problem with your interpretation. And the attorney's interpretation. I just want to be very, very clear that when we when you say transact business, you mean pass a motion.
Yes.
So that means that we need 4 yes votes to pass any motion, regardless of how many people we have here. We need 4 to be able to meet at all. And then whether we have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, if a motion is to pass, it needs 4 yes votes, which is the way we've been operating. But I just want to make sure it's crystal clear to everybody that that's what we're talking about when we say transact business. That it's not just that we do something, but in order to pass something, we need 4 votes.
This is an opportunity for me to say, I had a slightly different reading of it.
I did too.
But the point that is important to me is not whether it's 3 or 4, it's that we agree, is it 4? And we do, and it's there, and we have a set of rules that we're all agreed upon, so that in order to facilitate these meetings, you just need to know what the rules are, right? And know that everyone's going to, we're all operating under the same rules. So any other questions, comments about that, Councilor Alfano?
I just wanted to make sure that we all agree that the mayor's vote can be one of those votes.
It does say in the following paragraph, I believe, that the mayor only votes to break a tie, make a tie, or create a 4th vote.
What does make a tie mean?
I think what that means is if, let's say we were down 1 person and there were, I guess it doesn't even matter. If you need 4, you gotta have 4.
Yeah, I think that kind of should be stricken.
That language, I believe, is directly from the charter. Is that right?
I double check.
It just seems redundant.
Okay, I can double check. If that is not required in the charter, would you like me to remove it?
Well, if
Councilor Alfano.
there were 6 folks and the vote was 3-2, the mayor can vote. I mean, it wouldn't pass at 3-2. It would pass at 4-2, but the mayor can express his opinion by voting to make a tie. Which I think is a valuable piece of information to the public and the rest of the.
I would agree with that. And so with that, I would say we keep that
Okay.
language in there as it is, even if it's only ceremonial in nature. And
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's see. There was some discussion and I think lack of clear direction around where council would like to consider the consent agenda. There was some conversation about putting it at the end of the meeting because then we can focus on some of the more deliberative discussion right up front. And then there was some discussion that it's, generally pretty quick and easy. We can get it out of the way quickly, but that is up to you, and I'm looking for your input and direction.
Councilor Brown?
So you're going to hear my theme over and over again, which Manager Curry has already heard, that I would like to avoid locking us into anything too concrete whenever possible, and to allow for flexibility and for discretion of the chair. And this is an example. I don't think that there's a proposal in the proposed rules of procedure about when the consent agenda will appear. And I would like to leave it that way. Right now, I think it just says each agenda may contain a section entitled consent agenda, and talks a little bit about what that is. I think we have different ideas about when might be good to have the consent agenda appear. And I think that we might need to try a few different things to find out. So I don't want to write it into anything, and I don't want to lock ourselves into it. Tonight, we're trying it as the last item. See how that goes. I don't think that sounds like a great idea, but I might be wrong. I'm definitely interested in trying it. So I don't want to write that in.
Others? Councilor Cohen?
As I remember, we both ways, like having at the beginning and at the end, both works. Like both of the ways we are doing with the consent agenda, they always work. So we don't have I agree, we don't have a specific rule about it.
Is there a preference? Because sometimes if we don't always know if an item's going to get pulled from the agenda, we do sort of have people prepared to listen to that. We can always tell them to listen at the beginning or the end, but if there is a preference, then the mayor and I can at least start building agendas that way.
Councilor, Councilor Alfano, Councilor Cohen, go ahead, then
Yeah,
Councilor Alfano.
so I remember you asked us to say that like 24 hours before the meeting, right? So then that won't be a problem. Because if you want to remove something from it, city staff all of us will know 24 hours before the meeting. So it doesn't matter if it's at the beginning or at the end.
Councilor Alfano?
I think if something happens every meeting, it ought to happen at about the same time. But I agree with Carrie that we're not sure where that time is for the consent agenda. So I would be in favor of putting it in the same place every meeting. But I am in favor of putting it early, but it's true that we really haven't experimented with that, so we don't know what works best.
Councilor Sheridan?
I think it might also work after general business and appearances, so not at the end, but not in the beginning. I think the reason why I wanted to move it out of the beginning was because I want the hard items first. And if people end up commenting on the consent agenda, it's just gonna push anything that we gotta do later. And I'm trying to get the hard things done early so we don't get tired when we're dealing with.
So, Councilor Brown?
So I think that these rules of procedure we're considering right now are the things that we want to be kind of written in stone for this is how we do things. And in here, it says the city manager will prepare an agenda that they'll finalize it with the mayor. And I think that's good. I think we just leave it like this. I think we just say, yes, that's great. And we can have conversations about where we want the consent agenda, but I think that right now I would rather focus on getting clear about what our solid written in stone rules of procedure are. And then, the things that are available for negotiation or change, I want to leave that into the discretion of the city manager and the mayor.
So if I could chime in on this, what I'm hearing specifically about the consent agenda is that there isn't one solid way that we absolutely should do it forever. And what I'm hearing from Councilor Brown, which I also happen to agree with, is that it does not need to be prescribed in our notes exactly what time the break is, exactly where in the consent agenda is going to fall, or even where general business and appearances is going to be. I would take it so far as to say we shouldn't prescribe a specific number of minutes for this type of comment or that type of comment. We need to be able to have flexibility. The flip side of that is, if it requires us to lock ourselves into language that will require another motion, discussion, debate, and devote to change in the future in order for us to all feel comfortable with our rules, then so be it. And let's have those rules. The important thing is we have agreed upon rules that we all share, that we share an agreement on. I would prefer for there to be flexibility in there. And then if we want to try to move something, we could just discuss it. And someone says, hey, let's try this. And we say, sure, let's try that. Councilor Doyle?
Yeah, I in general really agree with that. I think like as the city manager and the mayor kind of build the agenda, having the flexibility to build that agenda in a way that makes sense with the overall flow, I think like we should trust you folks to do that. The one caveat I would say though is I really do believe strongly in whenever we have public comment or whatever general businesses and appearances, that we should really try to be as consistent as possible so that people know when to show up. But other than that, I really do think, and I think like Jim, I appreciate the concern about the consent agenda, but I also think if we do the thing where people are notified, but if somebody wants to pull something off the consent agenda for people to comment on, if we're doing it with 24 hours notice, that item can be pushed later in the agenda and we could get the consent agenda right out of the way without any kind of discussion. But whatever, in general, I totally defer to you folks on it, with the caveat of like making sure that there's a set time so the public knows when to be here if they want to comment.
Okay. Councilor Brown?
Just one other little nitpicky thing about the pulling something off the consent agenda 24 hours in advance, that is written into the rule, to the proposal as when possible, or if you can, try to let people know, let staff know that you want to take it off 24 hours in advance, but it's not a requirement. And so that if you show up to the meeting and you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this was on here, I didn't think it was going to be a big deal, it can be taken off at the beginning of the meeting, and that we're asking city councilors to look at it in advance and try to anticipate when they want to take something off, so we have time to prepare.
Right. Counselor Alfano.
I would just note that the warrants and payroll approvals are part of the consent agenda and require signatures, and putting them at the end means we all have to hang around at midnight to sign the warrants and payroll approvals.
It's like this, yeah.
Because we can't sign them.
Right, until they've been
or they're
approved, sure. Okay, good comment. What is the next item
Okay.
that is not?
And then, I mean, again, this is one of these things you can just leave to discretion. You all have been trying out assigning times, durations of each item in order to keep your flow of your meeting moving more expeditiously. We do not have to include that in the rules. We can include it in the rules. We can continue trying this out to see if it works for you all. I don't believe I have language in here right now about, or I say suggested duration, but not prescribed. Thank you.
Mhm.
Is that a 2-minute, a 1-minute warning? 4 minutes. 4 minutes, great, okay.
Speaking of times.
Counselor Doyle?
I'd like to see suggested times in there. I think it might be helpful.
Okay, I like that. I think it's helpful. We also know they're aspirational. We're not locking ourselves into ending something at exactly 7 o'clock. For example, this topic may go to 7:03. I don't know. Measure Curry, next.
Okay, and then is council comfortable with the degree of discretion that is given to the chair in these rules?
Counselor Brown. Oh,
Is that a particular item that you're referring to in the rules of procedure?
Nope, it's a general.
So
under-
I am in favor of a lot of discretion given to the chair. I'm not sure where that is clarified in here. And as I read through these, there were lots of items where I thought, well, I would add in at the discretion of the chair, or the chair may change this if necessary. So I'm not sure where that fits into the overall document.
I mean, if I'm looking for some under public participation number, item K, for example, it says 5 minutes will be afforded to each speaker during general public comment. The chair may shorten this time if a large number of speakers request to speak, right? So that gives some latitude there. There was, not finding where it is. If a member of the public does not refrain from disrupting, the chair may call a temporary recess. If the disruptions continue after the recess, chair may adjourn the meeting to a time and date certain, or where did this go? Hold on. I'm looking at the old one, sorry.
That's okay. We could
Where do
also
you
just
see it?
include a
Thank you.
general, the council wishes to acknowledge discretion to the chair for the conduct of the meeting.
Counselor Brown.
Yeah, I approve of every instance in here so far where it says the chair has the discretion to do blah, 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 blah. I would broaden it. And if there is some sort of overarching statement, that'd be great, which could probably replace a lot of the details. I mean, for instance, 5 minutes will be afforded to each speaker, and the chair may shorten this time. The chair may also lengthen that time, so that these are sort of I like the idea of us having kind of general expectations for how we do things, but not to lock us into, there will be 5 minutes unless the chair says less. And that's our only option. So I want more discretion on the part of the chair. And I just, the law says that public comment will be allowed within reasonable rules established by the chair. And I think that's a good guide for us.
Agreed. I guess some of the purpose of this is to foreshadow to the public as well what their expectations
Yep.
are for your meetings. And
Yep.
so since you have been operating under the practice of, 5 minutes at general businesses and appearances and 2 minutes for public comment on items, that's what I incorporated in here. I'm happy to follow whatever you wish to do related to that.
Counselor
Sorry.
Brown, go ahead.
So the 5 minutes is, came about in my memory when we eliminated public comment on individual agenda items. And then we expanded the amount of time people had on general business and appearances to 5 minutes. Before that, I think it was less. I think it was 3 minutes or 2 minutes. Yeah. So I don't, again, I don't want to lock us into that. It doesn't. And then also this is within there's the context, the later context of which agenda items are going to allow public comment, which we haven't discussed yet. Sorry.
So, Counselor Alfano?
So, for example, with regard to that, so this version says that the chair may shorten this time, the 5-minute time, and then if a large number of speakers are requested to speak, well, it could simply be the chair may shorten this time at his or her discretion.
Sure.
May-
Also, what's a large number? I
Right.
mean,
We're not determining that. Chair's determining.
I think Counselor Brown's point is that what if we want to give people more time? That is not allowed by the
Sure,
language.
may alter this time. I mean, we
Right.
can change.
I think
make it
I
more
think that's
general.
what
I
she's
agree.
suggesting. I don't want to speak for you, but that's what I hear.
I am. And there may be another reason to shorten the time other than a large number of speakers request to speak.
Sure, could be 1 in the morning. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Next item.
Well, no, I just want to sort of tie this up because I also think it's helpful for you all to understand what you're like, if you want to agree to a specific time limit so that you're not debating that amongst each other at every meeting when you're having public comment either, unless you do truly just want Mark to decide. And if Mark's in a hurry out the door that day, then 2 minutes for everybody and that's it. So that's all I want to be very clear about. I'm happy to just say amend, the chair may amend at their discretion, for most of these.
Before we go to your comment, I just restate what's important for me is that we agree on something and we have a shared set of rules. Okay, whether it's 5 minutes or 3 minutes, or I have discretion to change it or don't. As long as we agree, that's the main important thing. Counselor Doyle.
Yeah, I just think that, I think we all know this from a good meeting is a well-facilitated meeting. And a well-facilitated meeting requires a strong facilitator. And I think we really just need to empower, not Mark per se, but the mayor to be able to adjust, I think as kind of Carrie's talking about like that kind of broad authority to run the meeting. And if the mayor's not getting it right, we can tell them that after the meeting, be like, I think you could have done a better job on that. But I don't think we want to be in a position where we're debating it at every meeting in the meeting. And, I do think it's valuable to put some kind of, to signal to the public, people are preparing remarks to read. They should know whether they're reading for 2 minutes or 5 minutes. And, I think we should try to give them that. But I really do think in general, we just need to trust the person that's sitting in that chair that was elected by the voters to facilitate the meeting as they see best.
And we're sort of at time for this item. Manager Curry, do you think public comment was opened and closed already? There's no more room to speak on this item. But general business appearances coming, you're welcome to speak at that time. Manager Curry, do you think you have what you need to finish drafting this? I know that this was sent out. I sent some comments back to you. And I think maybe others also sent comments back to you. Do you feel like you have what you need to capture what we've just discussed?
I think so. I'm not sure if I'm deleting any prescribed minute counts in here or not, 2 minutes or 5 minutes. So I do need that. And then I'll just speak to Counselor Brown's other, I had not called out sort of the categories of items on because the feedback I got was, that sounds good, let's try that. And so that's how I was going to move forward unless you want to have further discussion around it. So that's all I'm looking for. I think Ben, I would say I would recommend saying how much time people are going to have so they have a sense when they walk in the room, how quickly they need to be succinct or not.
Counselor Alfano?
Well, one of the problems that I think we're trying to solve is how long we allow public comment. I mean, if there are 40 people in here who want to speak for 5 minutes, we're going to be here for a long, long time. The problem is this type of rule is great when you're in a large auditorium where you have a mic and people line up. And the chair can say, oh, there are 40 people at the mic. I better cut the 5 minutes to 2 minutes. Here, we don't do that. We have no idea how many people want to speak at public comment. We look around and see if some hands are here or raised, but we really don't know. So I think we need a maximum time for public comment that can be changed at the chair's discretion. And then we need a maximum time for the speakers themselves that can also be changed, just in case there's a large group or a small group.
So I
But
think
we need a time. We definitely need, the speakers need to know how much time they're likely to have. And we should be aware of how much time we're likely to spend. It's a little more complicated, but it still preserves the.
Yeah. And I think here where I say 5 minutes will be afforded, that's your max. And then the chair may amend that at their discretion is the min or the assessment.
Yeah, either way.
Okay,
And I
Not-
picked those numbers because that's how you all were operating recently. So I wanted to reflect that.
But the chair would still need
Yeah.
some way of ascertaining
Mhm.
if there was a large number of speakers
Yes.
or not.
sure. And
In
again,
my
you know,
experience, we generally have a sense of like, there will be, like tonight, I think you will have the most amount of speakers on Country Club Road. So when we reach Country Club Road, you might want to ask, how many people here and online, please raise your hand, who wish to speak on Country Club Road?
Counselor Sheridan, one more thing?
Yeah, now this is why I want the hard things done early.
Okay. All right, thank you. Manager Curry, you're good to go?
Good way to
Yes.
end it.
Okay, good. Thank you. We're gonna move on 7 minutes
I
past
need
schedule.
a motion to repeal and replace
Uh,
with your amendments.
but do we not need to see the actual amendments before we can
Well,
do that?
I wasn't thinking so. I gave you a redlined version that I've heard a few edits to be
Okay.
made to that can then be your adopted final.
I think since you're producing that
Otherwise,
document,
waiting
can
2
you,
meetings before you're gonna adopt. put
Yeah.
them into practice.
can you just review for us which amendments are taken and which ones are not taken? And then we'll take a motion on that.
Yes.
Like to speak before you take a motion.
So we agree that the quorum is 4 to meet and to approve business. You agree that the consent agenda does not need to be early or prescribed but in these rules, that the chair and the city manager will work together to schedule that. There's a request to give 24-hour notice to pull items from the consent agenda, but that is if possible or when possible, not a requirement. That we will add time onto the agenda in order to track the progress of the meeting. The council is comfortable with the degree of discretion given to the chair. Anywhere where we discuss times or things that are prescribed, we say the chair may amend this at their discretion. And I'll add that language into the number of places where that those maximum and minimum times are called out.
Okay,
That's it.
Counselor Brown.
Yeah, I would have other changes that I would like to make if we had more time to talk about this. So I'm not prepared to vote yes on that motion, if there is a motion.
Okay. It's up to you. You can continue if you wish to.
Do you have a sense of if that's an hour's worth of discussion or 5 minutes worth of discussion or somewhere in between? Not trying to pin you down.
I don't think it's something we can do at this moment right now.
Okay.
I would be much more comfortable waiting to see another version brought back at a future meeting.
Okay. Other counselors, I mean, we have been in situations like this where one counselor has brought up a point, but it is not reflective of of the will of all the counselors. And so I want to give everybody a chance to weigh in on this. We are opening up the floor for a motion to adopt these rules as amended with the amendment summarized by Manager Curry. If someone would like to make that motion, we may. If someone would like to make a motion to postpone, we can do that.
I will move to postpone
Okay, is there a second?
till next meeting.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion to postpone this item to the next meeting? Any,
Just that, I mean, I think we're really close.
Yeah.
And so I would just really hope that if we have additional comments or process that needs to.
item?
Okay, next.
Go ahead, Manager Curry. Thank you. Nope, it is responsible employer ordinance review. Please go ahead and tee it up for us.
Well, we'll invite Kurt Monica, our Department of Public Works Director, to join in the conversation. So Kurt brought this to my attention that the city has on the books a ordinance called the Responsible Employer Ordinance. This was originally approved back in 2019 and endeavored to be a policy of the city that would award contracts in excess of $200,000 to firms that adhered to Vermont's state prevailing wage, classified workers as employees rather than independent contractors, and had certain insurance coverage requirements built into the ordinance. It also included some administrative steps to require adherence to those goals. This ordinance was suspended on October 9th, 2024. Staff brought this forward for consideration to suspend, given additional cost pressure that the ordinance was adding onto city projects over $200,000. That suspension is expiring upcoming this October. And so we wanted to bring it back for discussion and direction from council on whether you wish to amend any of the language of the ordinance, repeal the ordinance, or if we were to, allow it to become reenacted, I would recommend that you bring it back for a public hearing as well to have the enactment date clarified. And that can also be the same process if you wished to further suspend. I would also suggest that you bring it back for further clarification on an enactment date. And so when we looked at this, so I've included for you in your packet kind of the steps that this ordinance requires relative to what bidders must do in that. Happy to walk through that with anyone, but I don't want to be repetitive. Listed some upcoming city projects that we have that are in the pipeline, which bid processes will start after October 9th of this year when this suspension would end. And also looked at how the state prevailing wage for our area compares to the rates for identical work that we pay for in-house and our DPW staff to illustrate, some differences there in the scale. And, it is our recommendation that given the priority for moving forward on infrastructure projects that have, been delayed or have not progressed over the years, and that this is one of your top priorities, that there is a lot of cost pressure on continuing with this ordinance or reenacting this ordinance. And so we would recommend that you reconsider it, but happy to have discussion, happy to have Kurt if you want to add any additional information about this.
Hello, I'm Kurt Monica, Director of Public Works. Just wanted to add a couple of items. We did a little research on this. There's only two other communities in Vermont that we found that has a similar ordinance. That's Burlington and Berry City. And the Burlington ordinance is just a flat minimum rate to pay construction workers. And the Berry City ordinance uses Davis-Bacon rates, which is the federal wage rate. But they have a provision within the ordinance that the manager can waive that. And in discussions with staff at Berry City, that is their practice, that it's waived for all of their projects essentially.
So you say that they have the policy in place, but it in practice gets waived for all projects.
That's correct. Yeah. So the reason that this was originally brought to council is what, like the manager noted, one is the cost added to projects, right? It's in discussions with the contractor that did the School Street water line shortly before this was suspended. They estimated about a 10% cost increase to the construction project. And our concern was that a lot of that increase doesn't go directly to the workers. It's administrative, it's overhead, it's the paperwork and things. So And the other part of the ordinance is that the way it's written, it's somewhat cumbersome for us as staff to implement. And it just adds, time to put it into the contract and to make sure that the sign-in sheets and everything else that are required within the ordinance are complied with. And there's no follow-up within the ordinance currently for us to verify that wages are actually paid to the staff. It's just sort of an honor system. So we didn't feel that the way it's written is really effective in what the goals of the ordinance were.
Okay.
Happy to answer questions.
All right, so to state once again for the room and everyone on Zoom, we're hearing a tee up from staff. We have clarifying questions and comments from counselors. We'll then open up for public comment, 2 minutes per person. We'll then go back into motion, debate, discussion, and voting. At this time, are there any questions or comments from council? Councilor Alfano.
Kurt, as I recall, when we discussed this 2 years ago, when we suspended, I think it was 2 years ago, we also noticed that we often got only one bidder on some projects because the smaller companies weren't equipped or weren't interested in the additional burden that they imagined, maybe unrealistically. But do you think that is that still the case, or do you suppose anything has changed there?
I do think that is a factor in smaller firms bidding this. Those firms that don't have administrative staff within the office. A lot of the owner operator companies, the smaller contractors, are the ones actually running the equipment, so they don't have as much staff time as sort of some of the larger contracting firms.
Are those companies, do they tend to be less expensive than the larger companies, or overall, is it too much of a generalization?
I think there's truth to that, not always, but I would say they tend to be because they have less overhead that they can do the work at a lower cost generally, yes.
And as I recall, you spoke with some of those contractors directly 2 years ago who said directly that they didn't bid because of this ordinance.
I do not recall that
No?
specifically,
Okay.
no.
Thanks, Kurt.
Other clarifying questions or comments before we move to public comment? Councilor Gill.
All right. It's all fine. This is broken, so I have to use this big thing. A little awkward. We did receive an email from, I can't remember, pulling it up, from one of the union reps. And so were they involved? Can they be involved? What is the process for them being involved? Like, what does that look like?
I'm not sure I received the email, but you can feel free to forward it. There will be also an opportunity, depending on what you decide tonight, for
Okay.
further public comment and
Okay.
input on this.
Okay.
Just so you know, if that's helpful.
Sorry,
Okay.
there will be 2 hearings on this before it's finalized, correct?
Okay.
Good question. Any other questions? At this time, I'd like to open this item up for public comment. Is there anyone first in the room who would like to speak on this topic? Mr. Bellini, followed by Mr. Kelman. If you are on Zoom and would like to speak, please use the raise hand function.
Hi, I'm Dave Bellini. I live in Montpelier. I grew up here. This may have been well intended in 2019. I don't know, did the council have ketamine then or something? But you can't always drive in the liberal left lane of lunacy until you're gonna meet, another car that's gonna hit you head on. So this, perhaps well intended at the time, it's a different time now. And I'll tell you how I feel about it. And I will quote the late Carlo Gambino.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Bellini. Mr. Kelman.
Calman, Montpelier. I sent to the council and the city manager some documents when this was originally proposed and passed, with a little bit of the history of it. I won't repeat that, except to say that this proposal was made in a particular time and place by a particular city councilor who had very strong ties to unions. And I think that I was a co-chair of the CJAC, the Social and Economic Justice Committee. We had concerns about the way it was written, the impact on the staff, because we thought, well, a livable wage is a good thing for everybody, including staff. Why was this only construction unions? And at the time, we didn't actually have $200,000 projects. So in some ways, it was purely symbolic. In fact, that was the goal. And when you have your hearings, they're going to be in here again. They're going to load this room with the unions, with their stories. And those stories are true stories in Burlington, in Plattsburgh, but they're not true stories about Montpelier. This was a time when there were people in our city government who wanted Montpelier to lead the way. It hasn't led the way. It didn't even lead the way in Montpelier. It was never used. I think it's time to put this to bed. And I'm glad to provide any detail from those times. Nobody here except John Odom was here at that time. But I'm telling you, this room was loaded with people from the unions making their pitch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We did receive your email. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Mr. Whitaker.
I was Steve Whitaker. I was here when this was promulgated and then postponed. What I heard from the contractors is that they would have to hire an extra person because when a construction worker shifted from doing pipe fitting work to moving dirt, those were different pay scales and the record keeping would just be onerous. They'd have to pay for another person there to keep track of who was doing what, how many minutes of each hour. And that's not practical. While I support the goal of equity in wages, this was, I think, the wrong tool to do it because it's not supporting, it's not encouraging competitive bidding and multiple bidders. So I would like if we are going to repeal it, I guess I could say this in a future public meeting on, is that we try to give further study to the equity provisions that were intended here and not let go of those, similar to our, net zero and our sustainability, et cetera. People can't afford to live here anymore, and we need to not just continue to erode that.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this topic? Okay. We're closing public comment on this topic at this time. I think the actions available to us are, we can't actually take any deciding action today. What are you looking for from us, Manager Curry?
I am looking for direction on whether you wish to amend any language of this ordinance, which would require a two reading public hearing, or repeal, which would also require a 2 reading public hearing. Or if you wish to enforce this as it is on the books, then the suspension, then you would do nothing. You would just, I think, take that, maybe make that statement as your action so that we would then enforce it come October 9th of this year. Or if you wished to continue to suspend this ordinance, I would recommend that you also do a 2-reading public hearing in order to set a future date to reconsider.
Okay, so 4 options on the table. One that could happen tonight is to do nothing, allow the thing to go back in force in October, and then it would need to be implemented. The other 3 options are to repeal, amend, or continue the suspension, right? Any of those would require 2 hearings. Am I hearing support for one of those 4 options? Counselor Sheridan,
I'll make a motion that we repeal.
the motion is to repeal. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Counselor Alfano seconds. Is there discussion and debate on this topic?
Just to be clear, right? it would
Counselor Doyle,
be-
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It would be that the council's directing staff to bring back language for the repeal that, right? Because there would have to be 2 public hearings on that.
That is
So
correct.
We
We cannot repeal
repeal it,
tonight,
but we
right?
can request staff to.
That is correct. Thank you for the clarification. Counselor Cohn?
And I just want to highlight again, we should keep the core idea of it, but we can just like change anything our department thinks which will be good for our city and for the developers and the construction workers.
I think what I'm hearing you say is that
The-
assuming that it is repealed, we would then rely on the guidance and judgment of staff to make those decisions.
No, when we are repealing, because they will bring the new text or document, I just wanna see that equity part, the core idea of this ordinance should be still there. So it is important.
Counselor Sheridan, it's your motion. I believe the motion is to repeal, which is just to get rid of the language. To bring back other language is to amend.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of confusing what you say. I mean, if you want to do a separate thing that values that, but I'm not interested, I'm looking to just repeal this, what I consider a bad policy. And if you want to bring something as a new policy forward, what you're talking about, I think that's how you should do it.
That would be a motion to amend. So
Okay.
if we wanted to do that, then we should vote on the repeal. And if it fails, then we can entertain a motion to amend.
Yeah, no,
Counselor Cohn,
I'm
go ahead.
okay with the repealing. I'm just saying like a general comment, right? Whatever it comes to us, we should have that general idea of equity in that new document. I'm not saying that just take something from this ordinance and put it back. General.
Right.
Am I clear? No?
Counselor Gill?
Okay.
There will be a new
Yeah.
document. That's the whole point. So when, sorry, I was thinking.
Sorry, thank you.
Like, me too.
I'll get you another one during the
Use my
break.
muscles. So I think when we repeal, it's gone. It's like off the books. It doesn't exist. So there will be no new document. Just won't exist.
So we cannot make something, not an ordinance, but kind of guiding value for us?
I mean, we can certainly express those desires to staff,
Yeah,
but then we
that's-
were reliant on
That's
the.
all,
on
yeah, that's all
staff's
I was
discretion.
asking, yeah,
Okay.
thank
Right,
you.
Any other discussion or debate on this topic before we call a vote? Counselor Brown, please go ahead.
All right, so I am not in favor of repealing this. I wasn't in favor of pausing it for 2 years, and I'm very sympathetic to the reasons why it was decided to do that. I do think there are complications within the ordinance that could be simplified. I think that it does present an administrative burden for contractors and for city staff, and I think we could get rid of those. But I think the basic underlying idea that we should require our contractors to pay prevailing wage, which is not the same as living wage. Prevailing wage is just the average. So we're just talking about average. We think that our contractors should pay their employees the average wage. It's not radical. It's not super lefty. It's not an extreme point of view. It's average. And I would like to keep that. I think that's an important value that the city should uphold. I also recognize that if we're not paying our own employees prevailing wage, then I don't think we can possibly require our contractors to pay the prevailing wage. And so that is a disconnect that we need to get sorted out. So I would be more inclined to continue this pause for another 2 years with the caveat that we are working to align our values so that our own employees are making the average wage for our area. And then we are also able to require our contractors to do the same thing just for consistency's sake.
Thank you, Counselor Brown. Oh, Counselor Gill, sorry.
So I do remember this conversation. It's coming back to me. I didn't go back and listen to the recording from 2019, and I could, but I think we've had the same conversation as, if we put this on pause during these 2 years, not 2019, it was 2024, sorry, 2024, when we put it on pause, we were going to study this. So I think another 2 years, like, will we do that? Right? So I don't know. I would just question that. I'm pretty sure, I mean, I can go back and look. I feel like it's all coming back to me, having the same discussion and having Groundhog Day come around. So I felt like we put it on pause. We talked about it. We were going to study it. We talked about the staff wages and making sure we looked and focused on our staff and that they had those prevailing wages before we looked at the contractors. But I'm assuming we didn't do that over the past 2 years. So, if we do move forward and we have another 2 years, will we do that? I'm just not optimistic in that, future forward thinking, but I don't know.
Commissioner Perry, would you like to comment on that before we move forward? Obviously, you couldn't have done the study over the 2 years. You weren't here. Nor was I, nor were any of us in the room.
Yeah, I don't have personal knowledge of that conversation, and I didn't listen to the recording. I read the memo and the minutes from that discussion, which didn't capture or recommend that in the discussion. So I'm sorry, I don't have that complete info.
Counselor Brown?
Yeah, I do not think we made a motion that directed staff to do that. And I don't think we should expect that staff should kind of pick up from the general gist of the conversation what we wanted them to do. So if we're gonna, once we get this motion straightened and done with, if we can make another motion, my motion would be to pause for another 2 years and at the same time come up with a plan to make sure that we're paying our own employees according to the prevailing wage as defined by the federal government, by the state of Vermont, and that with the intention of being able to enact this ordinance, to act on this ordinance in 2 years. So that's what I would be proposing. So it's very clear, because I also agree with Counselor Gill that if we just say, oh, this would be a good idea, that's not the same as making it happen. And I think this is a question before the council right now is this a value of ours? Do we think it's important? Should we be paying our employees the average of what market rate is, not the high end of market rate, just the average? Is that important to us or not?
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I think I'm going to try to summarize where we are at this moment and then what options remain to us in the future. The motion before us is to repeal this specific language. And that would, it is to direct staff to bring that back to us so we can have 2 hearings during which we will decide if we will actually repeal this. Once it is repealed, there's nothing to say that in the next 2 years, someone could not bring new language that is better refined and addresses the same topic if they so chose, right? It doesn't preclude that, but it is not the same thing as amending the current document, and is not the same thing as continuing the postponement, was it? The suspension is not the same thing as continuing suspension. So the motion before us is to direct staff to set up 2 hearings to repeal this language. All in favor of that, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Any abstain? We have 5 for, 1 against, no abstentions. Manager Curry, are you clear on your next steps?
Yes, we will bring this back for a first reading and public hearing on August 12th to
Okay.
repeal the ordinance.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Counselor Brown, for your comments and your passion. All right, we are moving on to Item number 8, the police department vehicle purchases.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And I would like to invite up to the table, please, our Deputy Public Works Director, Zach Blodgett, and our Acting Police Chief, Jeff Pearson, to help me present this. So we brought this forward on the consent agenda at the beginning of April to request authorization to purchase 2 vehicles for the police department that were included in the FY27 budget. So the budget that started on July 1st. The low bid for the vehicles that had been obtained was for a Ford F-150 responder truck for just shy of $49,000 and a hybrid Ford Police Interceptor SUV for $45,086. That item had been pulled from the consent agenda for discussion with interest by council members to investigate whether the authorization should be for electric vehicles for the police department, not the 2 vehicles that have been proposed. So we are coming back with that at this time. I will say admittedly, not with the most thoroughly researched proposal or presentation for you all. With the staff turnover at PD, those who had been assigned to doing this did not follow through, but we thought it was important to bring back to you with the recommendation from staff that we would be authorized to purchase these vehicles. I do want to engage in, present to you some of the information that was included in our memo. There are definitely pros for consideration for this police department's conversion to a portion of its fleet for electric vehicles. It's a small geography. They don't drive a whole lot of miles in average on a shift. The police department has a practice of topping off their vehicles during shifts. That would be the same as sort of charging during their shifts. I don't dispute that there's overall lifetime savings costs for electric vehicles oftentimes. And it's something that we are very interested in continuing to consider and support council in the consideration of purchasing more EVs and converting our fleet to a more environmentally sustainable fleet. With that, there are some considerations relative to the police department being kind of the first to begin that conversion. These are shared vehicles that are used across shifts every day on a daily basis. They need to be comfortable for the officers who are using them in their full gear with their full equipment. There is potentially a need, should we adopt EVs here, for additional equipment that we would have to consider and budget for, which includes, because of cold weather, heating of batteries, auxiliary power for running the equipment that they have in there, which has been something that other police departments have needed to do for these to be a success. And then I think the thing that is really motivating my recommendation right now is that this council has really taken a committed approach over the years to getting our fleet replacement schedule in a healthy place by every year committing to investment in replacement of vehicles over the last several years. And so right now, with the purchases that are proposed for this year, it would mean that we are retiring the last of our oldest and most heavily maintained vehicles. So because we have a waterfall effect with our cars. So when the police department gets the newest vehicles, they get passed down through the police department, then they get passed down through parking and the fire department and DPW. This would retire 2 vehicles that have over 100,000 miles on them and which may not pass inspection in the next year. And so that would really get the fleet to a place where you have safe and sustainable vehicles that can be relied on across the staff with the authorization that we are requesting tonight. And I think that tees us up for being able to have a really thorough look at how we would begin the conversion to electric vehicles. We did some research, again, albeit I will say not the most the most thorough. We did explore, you know, could we use the level 2 charger and upgrade it to a level 3 charger? We explored what would the installation of a dedicated level 3 charger cost. We talked about, you know, do officers take their vehicles home? They would be able to charge them at home instead of having to do that during a shift and worry about its function throughout the shift. Do we have any additional budget to cover these things? I will turn it over to the police chief and to Zach as well to talk about some of the research and conversations they have had. You know, I will say, you know, I came from a community that was very aggressive in its conversion to electric vehicles over time. The police department there, you know, has 37 staff. They have a number of electric vehicles that they use and rely on consistently. It's similarly small geographically. Not every vehicle, however, is an EV in their fleet because there's still a need to rely on some trucks, some off-roading capabilities, some ability to move larger equipment, things like that. We also had considerations for, you know, in the county that I worked in to really expand our EV fleet, that just some vehicles were not appropriate for that use. And that in general, best practice is you would begin this conversion with cars that are not your most critically serving community car, you know, community fleet vehicles. That beginning to convert our fleet, we would recommend looking at some of the other vehicles that are up for purchase in the forthcoming years. For example, that are in different departments with more administrative functions to do so. And so that's continues to be our recommendation. I'm very happy to continue looking at this. We would like to come back with a thorough plan on how which vehicles we would identify for electric vehicle purchase in our forthcoming years of our replacement schedule, any additional, you know, evaluation of our maintenance staff and the training or tools they might need to better serve maintenance on these vehicles. And some budgeting recommendations, because while there are costs, there definitely, I don't dispute cost savings over time. We need sort of the seed money to start that off because they're generally not recouping those costs for several years. So those would be the recommendations that I would like to bring back in the course of your budget conversations for the forthcoming year so that you can incorporate, you know, what that looks like with any other trade-offs in the budget that might need to be made. And so I'll look to Zach and the police chief if they have anything additional to present, and then we're all, of course, happy to take questions.
Zach Budget, Deputy Director for Public Works. This year, our street sweeper broke down. So we had a little bit of, we were kind of thrown into it. The only available sweeper that we could get was an electric sweeper. Vendor told us that it would run anywhere between 11-ish hours, which met our demands based on the hills and how we actually used it. We were getting 5 to 6. So that specific piece of equipment, it didn't make a lot of sense to move to EVs right now. I think we have a budget that we passed that supports an SUV and a truck. And so I'd like to see us continue with that plan that we set forward. And then in our upcoming years, really look at where the best fit for those EV vehicles are. In FY28, we have a water sewer van that is due to be replaced. And that is a perfect type of vehicle because it runs about 6 hours a day. They could charge it every single night to top it off. The charger at the water plant, which was upgraded for the sweeper so that we could charge it, is already there. So that is a good case where you could make that conversion. The infrastructure is already there and it would align with the future plans that we've kind of already set forth. So my personal recommendation would be to proceed with what we've adopted in the capital plan moving forward, get these 2 pieces of aging equipment that we have out now, because the frames are getting holes in them. They're almost 10 years old. They're not going to pass inspection. And when we develop our next capital budget, look into how quickly we want to do that, and we can come back and provide more detail. But I do see in the future that we would be able to start to move towards EVs for specific equipment in our city.
Chief Pearson?
Good evening, everyone. Jeff Pearson, interim police chief here in the city of Montpelier. I would reiterate what Zach is saying, and also Manager Curry, and that, I am a proponent of moving to an EV platform to some degree. However, I don't feel that an EV platform for everyday patrol use is sufficient for the needs of the department or the city itself. In my short time in this position, I've had a lot of conversations with other agencies that do utilize EVs in some capacity. I've done some research into best practices in the here and now on how they're being used. I can tell you what my research has led me to see that, generally speaking, when agencies are purchasing EVs, they're typically a much larger agency than ours, and those EVs are being used in administrative functions, maybe a school resource officer. In one instance in Connecticut, there's a department that has a fleet of electric trucks, and their sole purpose is to go out for crash investigations. So they're not an everyday patrol vehicle that's rotated through multiple shifts a day. And then, of course, there's also administrative uses where a lot of the Ford Mach-E's are being utilized by departments for their administrative positions. So they're driving home to work, and the vehicles are charging at either location and then being driven there. It is my recommendation that we go through with the proposed purchase of the truck and the hybrid SUV to get our fleet back to a position where we're not constantly dealing with maintenance on our older vehicles. As Manager Curry pointed out, it's going to allow us to then re-examine the EV purchases as far as where they would actually fit into our fleet. Based on my research and knowledge in the last 28 years in this profession, I don't believe the platforms are there yet that allow us to utilize them in that patrol capacity. There's one vehicle that's being manufactured. It's a Chevy Blazer, and it's considered a police SUV. My understanding is that a lot of the interior space of that vehicle is dedicated to battery storage, which takes away, our guys carry a lot of equipment in these vehicles, and to think that we're going to have to find a way to utilize an EV with the potential for having a prisoner back there to transport to a facility, as well as carrying all the necessary equipment, it's just not feasible space-wise. These new SUVs, including the hybrid SUVs, are sufficient. They meet our needs. They're able to carry the equipment that we rely on every day. They're also able to transport people. I think it would be in our best interests, in the city's best interest, to go forward with this purchase now and then explore other options for EVs as we move forward with the city's zero energy policies that are in place. And I'm happy to answer try to answer any other questions you might have pertaining to those at this point.
Thank you both for that. Are there any clarifying questions from council before we move to public comment? Before we take a motion, discuss, and vote? I'll remind everyone, we're currently about 3 minutes behind our schedule for moving to the next thing. I do not want to rush us. It's an important topic, just keeping us honest to our time. Are there questions or comments from council? Councilor Alfano.
Thank you for your testimony. I went back and looked at the net zero policy from 2021, and it's it's 5 years old. I don't know if there's an updated version of all the charts and data that in there. Maybe somebody's keeping track of the the conversions that we have made. A lot of, it basically focuses on buildings and transportation. We've done a lot on buildings. We have not done much on transportation, but it occurs to me that this is not something we can do piecemeal. And I'm a little surprised that after this net zero report came out in 2021, that we didn't sit down. Maybe we have sat down with Green Mountain Power and figured it all out. But the recommendation in 2021 was for, in the next 6 years, so between 2021 and now, basically, 10 EV vehicles and 10 chargers, which I don't, and the costs have doubled based on their estimates from 2021. And I don't think you can do that without a detailed plan that involves your local utility. So I understand your point of view, but from my point of view, I don't want to blow this up either. I think we should go ahead with these recommendations, but that we should immediately, because I believe that eventually we should convert to EV as much as we can. But I think we need some sort of a working group to address a systematic, changeover from what we're doing now to EV. It's not something we can do, willy-nilly, piecemeal way.
We will have more opportunity for discussion and debate later. Are there other clarifying questions at this time? Okay, thank you. Councilor Sheridan, question?
I just want to say, I like the SUV part that the hybrid. I have a hybrid. You definitely go to the gas station less when you have a hybrid. I love my hybrid. I don't want a full EV. So I think it's great that one of them is a hybrid.
Other questions from council? At this time, we'll open public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak for 2 minutes on this topic? Seeing none. Anyone online? Also seeing none. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to either approve or not approve this recommendation. Councilor Sheridan?
I'll move to approve these recommendations.
Okay. Is there a
And also to echo Sal's thing that from here on out, let's look at other possibilities.
Just to keep it clean, let's keep those two things as separate things. The first motion, I believe, is to approve this recommendation.
Okay.
Yes? Okay, is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any discussion or debate? Councilor Gill?
I'll put in my 2 cents. I was the one that took this off the consent agenda. I'm very passionate about EVs and I did a bunch of research. So I just wanted to make a quick statement. I'm not going to belabor this because I'm sure this will pass and that's fine. I think you obviously need a truck. So yay. That's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about, that this really just goes beyond purchasing these vehicles. Based on, what Sal said, it's really about governance, accountability, and whether policies adopted by the council actually guide our decisions, right? So over the past decade, we know councils come and go, but they adopt policies. That is what our job is. And we committed to transitioning our municipal fleet toward net zero whenever possible and cost effective. We adopted a net zero resolution in 2018. That was 8 years ago. We approved the net zero action plan in 2021. That was 5 years ago. And just last year, we reaffirmed those policies through our action plan or 2025 city plan. So we know that these are all facts. We set these policies. We know what we wanted to do. We wanted to go 100% electrification or zero emissions by 2030. That was the goal. That's what the council said. That's our job, is to set our policies. So if we have had a net zero resolution since 2018, a net zero action plan since 2021, and the 2025 city plan reaffirmed those goals, we're now waiting for 2028 budget to develop this implementation plan. So that's 10 years past the first initial, idea of this. So nothing's been done for those 10 years to set forward our 100% zero emissions by 2030. We're 4 years away from that goal. So if we adopt policies but don't budget for them, we don't implement them, and don't explain why we're departing from them, then what is the purpose of adopting these policies at all? I appreciate that staff evaluated this request, but I still don't believe council has enough information to determine whether purchasing a gasoline vehicle is the appropriate exception to our adopted policy. So did we consult, we talked about other, police departments, looking at the actual mileage and duty cycle requirements. We talked a little bit about that, the life cycle cost analysis. Is the $126,000 level 3 charger truly necessary? If staff concluded an EV could not meet the operational requirements, where is that document analysis for council review? You already acknowledged that wasn't a thorough review, and it would be nice to see that analysis moving forward. I think these are very reasonable questions. So they're not intended to delay the purchase of your trucks. This is really like a governance policy question for us as a council. They're intended to ensure that if we're making an exception to a policy. Like, I think we need to be very clear that this is an exception to what we adopted as a city of Montpelier's council's policy. So we're doing so based on clear evidence and transparent decision-making. Ultimately, this is not about the truck that's being purchased. It's about whether the policies adopted by this council are meaningful commitments that guide our decisions, or whether they become documents that sit on a shelf until they're inconvenient. And I think this is a very important example of adopting our policies and implementing them. So if this is something that we're truly interested in doing, let's do it. And if we're not interested in moving our city to a net zero by 2030, let's be honest and not do it, right? Like, let's not kill ourselves with having all these conversations if that's not something that we're interested in. But if we are, let's have an actual plan and let's include it in the budget to make it happen. But I think I see this all the time and it's just really frustrating. This was just one example, not to pull this out for your EV, but I think, let's implement what we say we're going to do.
Thank you. I'll just note that I'm hearing a little bit of a theme between Councilor Brown's comments on the responsible employer ordinance review on this, that it is common, I think, for I imagine we're not unique in this regard, but that the governing body wants to set lofty goals to move all of us forward, and then they become difficult to implement. And so we're seeing an expression of values, but the budget is also an expression of values. And if we don't express our desired values through our budget, then we will not be successful in achieving those goals. So I'd just like to remind us all that because budget season is around the corner, always around the corner. So with that, is there any further discussion or debate on this before we call the vote? Councilor Cohn?
So since we are talking about policies, maybe it is time. I know everybody's so busy. We are doing so many things, but maybe it is time to look at all our policies and just like see what's happening, what is missing, what we can do more to keep what we are doing, or just like, oh, we want to say, yeah, this policy is generally great, but this part is not working for us anymore as a community, then we can amend or improve that part. So maybe, I don't know, in a 6-month or kind of a long-term planning, it will be great to see. I did a little bit research, not only net zero, but other policies. Some of them we are doing great. Some of them, based on the public documents on the website, we haven't done that much. So let's review them and decide what we want to do in the long run with all our policies. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Cohn. Councilor Doyle?
Yeah, no, I just appreciate like the conversation that's happened around this issue. And Adrian, I really appreciate the research that you've done on it and the kind of passion that you brought to it. I do feel like it's important to acknowledge that there has been work done towards meeting our net zero goals, whether it's buildings, or I'm even just thinking about like the upgrades at the wastewater system I do feel like there is work being done and that has been done. Recognize we're not moving at the rate at which we hoped. I think there are some valid reasons why. Given leadership transition, given COVID, given the flood, there's a lot, right? It doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means that, we're always balancing values. And in many ways, I think of this not so much as a values question, but as a tactic, right? Like, we want to move towards net zero. We want to move towards a more kind of electric fleet. But is this the moment? Is this the vehicle through which to do it? And I do think it's a governance question in which we set the values, we set the budget, we set the vision, and then we task and trust, right? And what I'm hearing from staff is like an opinion around the tactics to achieve the vision that we have set, right? And we need to hold ourselves accountable to that. We need to hold the manager accountable to that. But I guess I would just say in this particular instance, like, I feel the urgency and the importance of wanting to get to net zero too, but I also really respect the opinion of the staff on this particular issue. And, I was when I was like, yeah, let's consider this a little bit more, right? How many meetings ago it was, but I feel like we've considered it more. And I think the time to consider it again is during that capital planning committee meeting, which, I was on that, right? And I got to tell you, it didn't come up, and it's shame on us, right? And it didn't come up in the budgeting, right? So it's like, we got to hold ourselves accountable to it too. But at this moment, I think where we are, I think it's time to approve their request.
Okay, if there are no other debate or discussion about this item, the motion before us is to approve the request as presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Unanimously passes. I would like to state for staff that while there's all this discussion going on, we do respect, value you, and support you in your decisions. Thank you very much for all of your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do commit to the things that we committed to in the memo with bringing back more thoughtful planning around the conversion and recommendations around budgeting for you all in this forthcoming cycle.
Thank you, Manager Curry. All right, we are 15 minutes behind our aspirational timeline. We are moving on to item number 9, the Public Arts Commission charge and membership. Manager Curry, would you like to tee this up for us, please?
Sure, and I would invite Matt Jelasik, who is our Community Economic Development Specialist and the staff liaison to the Public Arts Commission, to come up and contribute to the conversation as well. So this is a group that has great ideas and energy, and we realized that the charge that they were operating under was no longer valid. And so in order to allow for them to, function and meet a quorum and have authority to act, Matt identified, the out-of-date language and had a discussion with the acting members of that group, and they worked together to propose updated language to you all, so that group can move forward. They do have ideas of projects that they're hoping to work on quickly, and therefore this is proposed as a two-part action. The first being to consider and adopt the updated language of the commission's charge. And then the second to appoint the members for the terms that have been proposed here so that they can begin their work. And then I suppose the third, which doesn't require an explicit action of you all, but would be to recruit and advertise for the remaining vacancy that would be on that board. And I'll turn it over to Matt to correct me if I got anything wrong or provide any other background on this. If you
Before we turn it over to you, I'd just like to say thank you both for a very thorough information in the packet. I think a lot of it's spelled out. We've had a chance to look at it, so be as brief as you like. We will supplement with questions. Mr. Jelasik, go ahead.
Yeah, Matt Jelasik, Community and Economic Development Specialist for the City of Montpelier. As City Manager Curry noted, the language for membership was outdated, and this is simply an attempt to bring the language for membership up to date. One difference that I think is important is that Katie Trout's be nominated from Montpelier Alive. There are many points at which the cooperation between Montpelier Alive and the Public Arts Commission would be very useful, and having her be a permanent member or someone from her office being a permanent member on the Public Arts Commission would be very useful. So it's significant, the only significant change.
Great. Any clarifying questions from council before we go to public comment, to motion, discussion, and vote? Seeing none, is there anyone in the room that would like to comment on this agenda item? Mr. Whitaker?
Thanks, Steve Whitaker. There's some problems with the way this body has been acting as a decision-making body in disbursement of grants that is different than its advisory role that it was cast as. The public arts plan that's available on the website is a 95 megabyte image only, therefore not ADA compliant plan. But I was unable to find any bylaws. It kept saying, where are the bylaws? That bylaw search is hampered by the type of PDF that was created. But you can't have a body that's voting money that's not complying with the meeting recording and virtual meeting obligations of open meeting law. So I'm supportive of the arts. Even though I sometimes rib them about they should also be supportive of public restrooms. because both are needed to bring the vitality that I think we spend inordinate amount. And one more thing, this Arts Commission, I believe, was involved in the wayfinding signs. Hundreds of thousands of dollars was spent on that big phallus out at, the gateway, and then the signs all over that have been knocked down. Most of them have fallen over, or the signs have fallen off. No one owns them. No one takes ownership and maintenance. And that's a problem that needs to be addressed in a plan. But you fundamentally can't have a body I guess the body probably needs to be recommending, and the council needs to be voting, even if on the consent agenda, for the expenditures. They can't be voting the expenditures the way it's currently structured.
Thank you for those comments.
That's a good governance kind of point.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Anyone else in the room like to speak on this topic? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this topic? Seeing no hands, Chair would entertain a motion we have two decision points before us. One is to adopt the language adopt the new policy as presented or not. And then to appoint members as recommended or not. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve new policy.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Brown. Is there any discussion? Counselor Gill?
Follow up Mr. Whitaker's comment. I am curious about a process. So if there is, for the Public Service Commission, are they, maybe it's in here, but I just read through it. Are they given a budget? Do they have to approve it? Does it come to council? Like, what does that look like?
One of the challenges at the moment is that the document for the Public Arts Commission is very aspirational. And so once these members are appointed and reappointed, my objective would be to go through the policy with them and then return to you with updated language to make sure that everyone is on the same page, because the language contradicts itself in many places, and the budget is set at $50,000 a year, which we don't have, and there are a lot of things about it that need to be revisited. And it's also interesting. Mr. Whitaker is not incorrect that lately the Public Art Commission has not operated as perhaps precisely following the rules as it might. And so we've already discussed going through line by line, looking at all of the policy. It includes things like the signage, and it includes things like taking care of the art that has been damaged in the public and what to do about it and what the process is for those things to occur. But none of it has been recently followed in the way that it is supposed to be. And so kind of trying to wrest more firm control over the process that they have. This is the first step in coming up with that.
Great, thank you. I hear that is what we're voting on tonight is to adopt this membership policy as written, and then following on from that, once we reappoint the folks, that you're going to be working on those other things and taking into consideration some of the things we've heard from the public tonight.
Yes.
Great. Other discussion or debate around this topic? All in favor of adopting this membership policy as proposed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously, this membership policy is adopted as presented. Thank you. Is there a separate motion to appoint the members as presented? Councilor Sheridan.
I don't know if I'm in favor of appointing members that are used to spending money on their own, because, you're gonna have to teach old dogs new tricks, and
They don't spend, since I've been here, in the 10 months that I've been here, they have spent $300 on lights that were asked for in the alley at the end of the block. It's not that they're spending any money.
Councilor Doyle?
Yeah, I'm the liaison to this group. I haven't met with them regularly, just haven't had the capacity, but I have had conversations with them about this issue, and you know, I would say this is actually a highly functioning group. Like they've done a really good job of leveraging like other funding. I think the best example I heard was the mural at Shaw's, you know, that I can't remember, they used like $5,000 like of city money, but leveraged like $20,000 or $15,000 of private investment. And my understanding was when they are making those kind of investments, that they have come back to council for approval, right? So that they haven't been, you know, here's 50,000. Well, first of all, we don't fund them really at a significant level, and that they haven't been kind of going rogue. And I hear your concerns, Jim, but I feel like this is actually a really strong group of people that just need some help getting the house in order. And and I think these policy changes will do that.
I completely agree.
So maybe,
Yes, Councilor Sharon, go ahead.
maybe I could ask you to maybe attend more regularly.
Yeah. Well, Jim, we've had 29 meetings of the Country Club Subcommittee, so maybe if we approve it tonight, then I'll be able to go to the other
Yep,
commission.
there you go.
Right. Other discussion or debate on this topic? All right, is there a motion to appoint the persons listed in the memo for the terms that are proposed in the memo? Councilor Alfano, I see you twitching.
Yes, I will move to appoint the members as proposed, the members of the Public Art Commission as proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cohn. For the record, I'm just going to read what's in the memo, just so we have it in there. Place number, there are 7 places, 5 of which are filled, 1 of which is the Montpelier Alive, and 1 of which is vacant. Place 1, I think, is Elliot Berg, whose term expires in 2029. Ward Joyce in place 2 at 2028. Megan Riley in place 3, expiring 2029. Rob Hitzig in place 4, expiring in 2028. Jesse Jacobs in place 5, expiring 2029. Katie Trout's nominated by Montpelier Alive, which is a standing seat, and place 6 is currently vacant. So we have a motion and a second to appoint these folks as presented in the memo. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously, those folks are appointed. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Kulasik, for your input. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker, for your comments. All right, we are now, I don't believe it. All right, we're at break time. It is currently 8:12. We're going to break until 8:30, at which point we will reconvene for general business and appearances. Yes. July 22nd, 2026. It is currently 8:30. This meeting of Montpelier City Council is hereby called back to order. We are at agenda item number 10, general business and appearances. Oh, sorry, is that better? Sorry, yeah. If, by the way, you're in the room having a hard time hearing, if you just wave your hand, we'll be reminded to speak into the microphone, so that would be sufficient and helpful. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak on any topic not on the agenda? Mr. Whitaker, please come forward.
But I'm going to speak to something that is on the agenda too.
If you speak to something on the agenda, then you will not be recognized later for public comment during that agenda item.
Well, but this one needs 5 minutes, so that's why
It is your time. Go ahead.
I'll be blunt because the record should be, you can't get there from here on the sequence that staff and their consultants have laid out for Country Club Road. It runs the order backwards, and no condition you bolt onto a developer negotiation tonight can turn it right way around. The order federal law and the ground itself requires is this: a master plan comes before you convey any of the land, and that plan has to be informed by what's in the soil. You can't responsibly plan land you haven't characterized, and you can't convey land you haven't planned. The contamination and the prime farmland sit in the same few inches of earth until the site is investigated. No one can say which ground carries housing, which carries roads, which stays in food production, which has to be dug out. That investigation is a 2027 field season and a cleanup plan after it. So the plan that should govern any developer agreement can't exist for about 2 years. The one cheap first step, a provisional public land use framework to scope that investigation, is a week's work the city has never commissioned. Now hold that against what the city just told the state. On July 14th, it certified that it is, quote, on schedule with the environmental review complete this November. I'd ask the staff to reconcile 2 dates in the record tonight: a review finished in November of 26 and the intrusive field work it depends on, which in Vermont cannot begin before the spring 27 thaw. You cannot complete in November a review that waits on field work 16 months out. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking staff to make those 2 dates agree out loud tonight. Why the fiction matters. HUD confirmed to me in writing on June 10th that the $5 million expires August 18th, 2031, 6 years from an award that started last August. The clock is already running. That money is reimbursement only, earned by building infrastructure and billing it. But that infrastructure sits on the same ground the cleanup has to clear first, so it can't be built until roughly 2030. You're being asked to convey against the grant deadline the project can't meet on its own required steps, and the award letter makes tonight's motion dangerous, not merely early. In its own words, no funds, HUD or non-HUD funds, may be committed and no binding agreements made before the review is released. And, quote, commitment of funds prior to the release of the environmental review will disqualify a project from receiving a grant agreement. An exclusive negotiation that yields an option or a letter of intent the city can't walk away from is that commitment. You'd be risking the grant itself to chase a deadline you can't hit. Here's the cost of running it backwards, and it's the whole point. The moment you convey the developable land before a market study, before an adopted plan, you give away the only leverage the public will ever have over what gets built there. Whether working people in Montpelier can afford to live in it, or whether public land and disaster recovery dollars build $500,000 houses for the highest bidder, pushing out the very people this grant was meant to serve. A market study is grant eligible planning. The 24 affordable units aren't nice to have. They are the legal condition of the money. Do this backwards and you fail Montpelier's families and the grant's own terms in a single move. So ask why the city is being pushed to convey now. Against all this, the pace is set by the city's real estate broker under an exclusive right to market contract that pays a commission only if a sale closes, and whose scope expressly excludes the detailed planning and financing work that would slow a closing down. I'm not guessing at anyone's motives. I'm reading the contract. It pays to close. It does not pay to plan. Don't authorize an exclusive negotiation tonight. Characterize the ground, plan the whole parcel in public, then subdivide and convey a real bounded buildable lot. Nearly the same work on nearly the same schedule reached on purpose instead of by default.
4 minutes. Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Whitaker. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak? Please, sir, come forward and state your name.
Oh,
Into the microphone, please.
into the microphone, yes. Make it a lot shorter. I'm Daniel Gates, and I'm running for side judge in November's election. Any other information you want at this point?
No, sir.
No? Okay, that's
This
it.
is your opportunity. Yeah. Thank you very much for letting us know. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on any topic, particularly those not on the agenda? Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Oh, man.
You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
I would like to first say thank the council for being here. Thank the mayor. Thank you very much, city manager, for being here. Like I said, when everyone is in the room, and I'm not accusing anyone of doing this, but if everyone's in the room yelling, I tend to whisper. And so I want to also just let everyone understand that they should be very, very patient with themselves. We've had a very, 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 very long way of thinking within the city. And so that takes a while for that to unwrap itself. I'd like to also say that I lost my phone today because, as everyone knows, I am still homeless. However, I want to thank another way. I'd like to thank all the staff there. I'd like to thank my peers for just allowing me to, that was just a hiccup. That was, I'm not emotional. To allowing me to my space and allowing me to see them as well. I hear some tremendous stories of people who have been forgotten, or are within a system that can't work with them because their situation is very unique. And so I'd like to say that they're out there. They're being very humane, and there are some things that are challenging within everyone's day that can cause schisms. But I'd like to just also say that Montpelier is a city that is trying, and I do see that. I'm just asking that we try a little bit more to also think about the pedestrian aspect of migration and movement. I know we don't have a lot of money, but we should also think about trash cans in the right places and benches in the right places so that they make sense, because it doesn't make sense to have benches or picnic tables in places that people don't sit, because if the picnic tables are being commissioned and not used, that is a waste. So, like I said, we are trying, and we have quite some ways to go. But like I said, I appreciate seeing what I'm seeing, and I'm hearing things also on the streets as well from tourists. Also, I want to say that I work at Marathon Sport. I appreciate them for hiring me, and we're very progressive and active in providing shoes to the public, and I spearhead that. So I just say I welcome different creative ideas to reach out and provide humane solutions for my peers. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We don't generally engage in back and forth, but I just want to say that I'm always amazed at how resilient and positive you are able to maintain, to keep yourself, and thank you for that. In terms of specific bench and table placement, I'd welcome you to email your suggestions about what is and isn't working out there as you're seeing it to the city manager or to Matt Jelasik. He'll give you his email address right now, and then we'll be happy to take those suggestions. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on any topic? I'm shifting over to Zoom. I see Mr. Hughes, your hand is raised. Go ahead, please. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, a pleasant evening, everybody. We might want to hear about those picnic table ideas too, so I'm sure they'll get over to us. I'm Zach Hughes from Montpelier, and tonight I'm going to speak about a couple things that are unrelated to homelessness right now anyway. First thing, I want to thank Adrienne for her service to the city and hope she serves the city in some way, outside here. You know what I'm gonna miss most is the push to get things done. And that request for data. We'll definitely get that, but I'm really gonna miss that part. And, I was absolutely shocked that you were gonna, you're moving along, but I do respect that. Certainly, I'm having to reevaluate this stuff myself as well. Yeah, so thank you very much. It's a very hard job at City Council, and those in District 1 who are interested, well, have fun and good luck. I I don't even know where this popped out of, but I noticed on the agenda, and you can stop me if you want, Mr. Mayor, but that there was a taser situation on there, and we had, the police were requesting tasers, I believe. And I just want to say, I have no issue with that. I would have loved for some sort of public outlet on that a little bit, not a committee. So don't worry about that. I don't want a committee because we already did that in 2011 and we recommended against it at that time. But that was a different time. And I'm just thinking, man, it would have been great if we had some sort of public input because I don't think people were aware of this. And I know there was a strong reaction from the citizenry last time. And, that's fine if y'all want to go this route. But I'm just saying, I don't have an opinion either way on it at this point. I was on that committee and we did put a lot of work into it. I think one of the concerns was that the scenarios we were presented with by the police department, which I appreciated their openness, they gave us scenarios that were not recommended by Taser for use. For instance, a subject running toward water or a subject who was having a heart issue. Those are things like that. And I really appreciated that openness by the police at that time because a lot of people are like, why can't you just shoot someone in the leg? And the police explained this to us. So I think I'm just saying that, and I appreciate everyone's time and have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Is there anyone else online or in the room that would like to speak on any topic not on another agenda item? All right, at this point, we are going to close general business and appearances. I would like to, we're not engaging in back and forth, but I would like to state my opinion about the taser issue because it's on the consent agenda. It's not going to come up for discussion tonight. We opened our meeting tonight talking about the value and importance of folks who are well-trained with the right training and the right equipment to do their jobs and respond to situations in town. We are currently hiring for officers, and we're still hiring for officers, not because there are no applicants, but because we have very high standards for who we will employ in the Montpelier Police Department. I believe that we have fine officers with the right training. They are requesting the right equipment to do their jobs. And I think it's important for us to not only give them the equipment that they need, but also to let them know that we trust their judgment and we support them. And I think we have a terrific police force. It is true that not every tool is the right tool in everybody's hands, but I believe in the case of our police department, it is right for us to give them the tools that they're asking for. So thank you, Mr. Hughes, for your comments. General business and appearances is closed. We are once again 16 minutes ahead of schedule. We will move on to item number 11, Country Club Road Project Update and Recommendation. I believe I can just turn it straight over to the subcommittee, or do you have things? Okay, we'll turn it over to the subcommittee and you decide who's going to take it.
Yeah, thank you. Why don't I just give a brief?
Sure, go ahead.
So we started this process, as you'll soon find, or be reminded, in October of last year, and we have finally,
I'm
I
sorry,
think-
Counselor Alfano, would you wait for a moment?
yeah.
Would the public please refrain from having side conversations in the room? If you need to stand for I'm not asking I'm asking the public in general to please refrain from having side conversations. If you must stand for medical reasons, please stand at the sides or back of the room. Otherwise, it can be very distracting for us. Counselor Alfano, I apologize for
Go
the
ahead.
interruption. Please
Fine.
continue.
Our charge in October of last year was to evaluate and recommend a developer to work with us on the Country Club Road project. And we have a nice overview of that entire process. But it came down to two candidates who were extremely professional and responsive. We made requests for revisions, which we received. We made what I think was a difficult decision. Both companies are well worthy of the partnership that we anticipate. But we're happy with our recommendation tonight. So with that, I'll hand it over to Adrian, who has, in her way, put together a pretty good presentation on the history of the subcommittee. Adrian.
Do try to speak into the mic as much as you can. I know.
All right.
You could.
It's creaky. Okay. Can you hear me? Is that good? Oh my gosh, what just happened? All right, it's weird. Okay, so I will hold this while I talk. Okay, so I put together
Sorry, could you
Yeah.
potentially use Counselor Brown's microphone? Would that be easier
It's
for you?
fine. I will be. I'll
Okay,
be
all right,
fine.
go ahead.
Don't worry.
Just not-
I am
yeah.
totally fine. Okay, so I put together slides. So we're going to go through a little bit about the history of where not all the way back to the beginning, but a little bit at the beginning, our process as we move through this decision and where we are today, and asking the council to vote on our next steps. So tonight, we're going to start at the end. The council, we want you to authorize the city manager to enter into exclusive negotiations with DEW to bring a letter of intent to council for approval before execution, and 3, bring development agreement to council for approval before execution. So that is where we want to end our night. That would be successful. But I also want to mention the important points here is that tonight we're not approving any final site plan. We're not approving the sale of the city property, a financing package, or infrastructure to begin. So just keep that in mind as we go through these slides. Always start at the end of what we're asking you to approve. So it is authorization to negotiate. That is what we are asking you to do, to approve tonight. So here is how did we get here? So the recommendation before council is really the culmination of nearly 4 years of planning, public engagement, technical analysis, and due diligence. Started in 2022. We had our community vision, our action plan, our RFQ, working with developer teams. We had 4 finalists. We went through reviews, public input. We had an independent financial review and analysis. We had public meetings throughout this whole process and recommendation. And then tonight we're moving to that final step of an authorization to move to the next step. So this is a huge amount of work. This is very high level milestones. I wasn't going to outline everything we did, but it is an incredible amount of work that the city should be proud of to get us to where we are today. And with that, we listened to our community, our constituents, through this whole process. And what we heard is that we really need more housing. And we want the housing to include ownership opportunities. We heard that very loud and clear through data, through our public outreach, and through all the different surveys that the city conducted. And we want fiscal responsibility and to add to the long-term grand list growth, with a caveat that this particular project is not going to solve all grand list growth, but it helps with that complex puzzle of adding to the grand list. Protection of open space and recreation was very important. Walkable, connected community, neighborhood, and strong environmental stewardship, and the high quality development partner with a proven track record. That is what we heard through this process. I know this slide is a little full, but it's hard to put all this information on here because we took a lot into consideration when we did evaluate the proposals of the developers that submitted and responded to the RFP. This was a very scientific, data-driven process in terms of looking at these evaluation areas: the development concept, financial feasibility, the development team, housing and public benefit, implementation capacity, partnership approach, proposal quality, and overall alignment. As we've mentioned, I think we met 28 times over the past few months. And really, I feel like we were extremely responsible in taking our time, our due diligence, asking questions, going back to the developers, in partnership with our consultants, our staff at the city, to make sure that the decisions that we brought forth to council were really data-driven and very well considered. And we were very confident in our decision. And so, once again, we reviewed all the proposals. We did conduct developer interviews. We requested revisions, right? So we looked at the data, we looked at what they sent in, and it wasn't exactly what we wanted. So we were not afraid to ask for more, to ask for different, to ensure that it aligned with what our community wanted. And the developers did that. They were very open to those revisions. We received a great amount of public comment throughout this process. We checked references on the developers. We worked with our independent consultants who reviewed the financial analysis, and we held 28 public warrant meetings throughout this subcommittee process. And so it came down to two. So two finalists, we really took a very deep dive into their proposals, and both were great. I think they both had really good strengths, and looking at, both organizations, came to us with experience that we really valued, and thinking about the financial viability of those projects, and had the strong team to make the execution of Country Club Road viable. And they were able to complete the project. This was all very, very good. And what a position for the city to be in, right? Just think about the proposals that came in. We had two that we had to really think about and go through that evaluation process to pick one, which was, it was not easy, but we did, and we're excited about it. But to state that both were very good proposals. And so through this process, one of the data pieces that helped us make a very clear decision was the independent financial review. So White and Burke did an independent financial analysis. They looked at the financial viability of the project. They looked at the development assumptions, pro formas, tax impacts, and the CHIP feasibility. And the key findings were both projects are financially viable through DEW and Chimberg. Both projects support CHIP financing, and both could be successful projects. Also, excellent news. This is really good to see that, we have two really great developers to choose from, and really, really happy that we were in that position. And so in the end, as we started at the end and we're coming back to that point, is the subcommittee recommends DEW to move forward with those negotiations. And why we chose DEW, because there was a better balance of housing and open space in their project. There was more ownership opportunities for our community, and there was flexible future growth. In the financial category, they had a really strong financial strategy. It lowered the risk for the city, and it supports the long-term grand list growth. And the implementation, they do have a very strong proven Central Vermont experience. They had realistic phase development, which we really appreciated in this market that we're in, and the strong execution capacity. And my little things up there, the partnership, collaboration throughout the process. They were very collaborative. When we went back and asked them to make changes, they were very excited to make changes based on what we asked them to do. That is a true showing of what a partnership should be and could be throughout this process, because we still have a long road ahead of us. And they were responsive and transparent. That is what you want. So those were a lot of the variables that we looked at to ensure that we're setting our city up for success throughout this process. And DEW was the organization that we chose. So while both finalists submitted financially viable, they were both very high quality proposals. The subcommittee concluded that DEW provides the strongest overall alignment with the city's housing goals, the financial implementation, and our partnership objectives. So I just want to make this very clear. I highlighted this in yellow to make sure this is very important for council to really like absorb into our brains, that this decision does not lock in the final project. Really, really important. I mean, this is a multi-phased approach over multiple years that we're talking about here. This is just a critical step in this process. And to outline what we're talking about here is the development agreement that we're asking you to approve for the city manager to move forward with. Is the development agreement addresses the land disposition, it addresses infrastructure, housing commitments, environmental protections, public amenities, performance milestones. The letter of intent and the development agreement will return to council for approval before execution. So it's really important to, you have so many stop gates throughout this process where you will have the opportunities to review, amend, approve, go back to the drawing board. And so this is just one step in the process. So future actions will follow the responsibilities established in those agreements and applicable to the city review process. So what happens now? So this is a process. So council's action tonight, if you say yes, begins the negotiation process. Once again, we're not here to approve the project itself. So with council authorization, we move into a letter of intent. Then council will have an opportunity to review and approve that letter of intent. And then we go into the development agreement negotiations, which we'll talk about of who will be a part of that work group, which is another council decision of who's going to represent that negotiation team. Then it comes back to council again for approval. So you're going to be brought along this journey and you're going to have opportunities once again to review all these very important documents. And then it'll go to DRB and regulatory review, just as all our other projects do. And then of course, project implementation. This makes it look like a very easy timeline, but there's lots of review and approve processes, and we're still talking a couple years out for project implementation. So just to be realistic and make sure to set everyone's expectations. So the development agreement, what will be negotiated? So the project delivery, there's implementation milestones. So really those stop gates of what we're working towards when we can, stop and look at where we are, how are we doing, what are we doing well? How do we improve this process in terms of implementation? Really outline roles and responsibilities. There's community commitments through our housing commitments and public amenities, and the site infrastructure, talking about infrastructure obligations and environmental protections, as well as accountability. There's always performance measures built into this process, as well as I said, the council will have opportunities to improve throughout this journey. So both the letter of intent and deviations from this development agreement will return to city council for approval before the execution continues along that path. So in closing, just want to be very clear that the Country Club Road Subcommittee, which is myself, Sal, and Ben, we recommend that we ask you to authorize the city manager to enter exclusive negotiations with DEW for redevelopment of the Country Club Road property, and to negotiate a letter of intent and development agreement will return to council for approval prior to execution. So that is my overview and history of where we are and our ask of the council to approve this moving forward. And I will end with any questions, discussions, and we can move to council action.
Before we go to questions, thank you, Adrian, Sal, Ben, for all of your work on this. I know it has been a lot. And you've saved a lot of us a lot of work. Councilor Doyle, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian, for doing it. And I just want to acknowledge to staff, right? Mike,
Absolutely.
Manager Curry, councils before this one, right? That did a lot of work to get us to this place. And I also just want to acknowledge that Don Wells is on the Zoom, and just, I think that's typical of this partnership. He shows up. And I just really want to say I appreciate that.
There's another Wells in the room with us.
Oh, there we go. They really show up. Great.
We'll
thank you
also
for that.
acknowledge- yeah. Are there any questions from council about the presentation we've just had? The following steps, of course, will be public comment on it. I would also invite you, if you have questions for Ms. Clark or Mr. Wells, that you could address your questions to them as well. I mean, really, there's only 3 of us that are not on the subcommittee already, so. Counselor Sheridan.
I don't have any questions for, DEW or anything. I just have some general questions, 3 of them. One of them's a 2-part that I just want to be cleared up. I didn't think they were explained real well. And probably these would be to Mike more than anybody.
Mr. Miller, if you'd like to come to the table, that'd be great. Thank you.
I noticed one of the things they talked about that they want to see is permit waivers. Could you tell me what permit waivers we're talking about?
Okay, this is Mike Miller, Planning Director for the city. So I think they are referring to permit fee waivers. I haven't seen specifically any requests to go through them. I'd have to go and look very specifically, but the process has always been that we're going to have to follow what's in our zoning code for whatever project comes forward. And I haven't seen anything in either of the proposals that would have given me reasons to believe that there were items in there that wouldn't be met. But if there are already waiver provisions that are allowed in zoning, so if they would like to apply for something that is already allowed in zoning, that's something the Development Review Board would take in an application. There's no waiver to the zoning that the city council can provide. We can't give a contract and waive the Development Review Board. They're a delegated authority to enforce the regulations.
So these waivers would be available to any developer coming in?
Yes.
Okay, that's my first question. Thank you. What kicks in the need for a second access?
There's a number of requirements that could come in. It's an engineering and public safety. It depends how the streets are arranged, and it depends on the level of traffic will determine whether or not and when and it can vary depending on if you've got a loop in the road, then you can accommodate more because you have a couple of things.
So it's a traffic study would be a big one then?
Yeah.
And do we have any areas that we are considering if that is reached where we are going to go, or is that still open?
I think it's open because it depends so much on design. And what the uses are, and even the difference between single family and multifamily can make a difference in what the expectation would be. I know one of the big ones is whether they're sprinklers or not sprinklers. We would expect all of these buildings would be sprinkled, and that would limit, because of course what we're talking about is if there's something that blocks an access, then there's no way for the people that are behind that. So if there were a car accident or something that happened at Turtle Island, then the people who are past Turtle Island wouldn't be able to get in or out. And so we would look at various factors that would, and there are engineering principles and standards that we would be looking at for that.
Thank you. Last question. I saw that there's going to be a 5-person team. Can somebody explain what that is?
The development team?
Yeah, so one of the decisions will have to be the development team, who is part of the development agreement team. And so that is part of the discussion.
And who can be a part of it? Is it up to the council to appoint that? Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, yeah, I mean, I saw it, I didn't know the total explanation and who it might involve and stuff like that. Thank you.
Yeah, it would
Thank
be
you.
it would be a second, once we've decided we're gonna go and once you have decided to go into negotiations with DEW, then your next act would be who are we going to appoint to that committee? So it wouldn't be a part of this vote, it would be a part of a next vote that would come in.
Thank you for your answers.
Great
thank you.
questions. Other questions? For Mr. Miller, for the subcommittee, for Mr. Wells or Ms. Clark? All right, seeing no other questions at this point, we'll open this agenda item up for public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this that have not spoken on this topic before may have 2 minutes. Go ahead. I've forgotten your last name, or otherwise I would call you. Please state your name for us.
Hi there, Tim Sinnott. I'm in District 1, and I'm on the Planning Commission. Vermont has a housing crisis. Montpelier has a housing crisis. I can't tell you how excited I am to see this moving forward. I think this is a milestone point. Thank you so much to the subcommittee. And you've made this is an excellent decision. DEW is proven. They have a proven track record, not only in Central Vermont, but also in Montpelier. So yeah, excellent choice. And I just wanted to follow up and say that at a recent Planning Commission meeting, Steve Whitaker we were debating, we were talking about both Chinburg and DEW, and Mr. Whitaker made an excellent point that DEW is here in Vermont. Their staff are here. It's a huge advantage. So he was encouraging us to go, if we were going to promote either developer, he was encouraging us to go forward with DEW, and I couldn't agree more. This is a really great choice, and thank you all for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Sinnott. If you are on Zoom waiting to speak, if you would please mute your microphone for now and unmute yourself when it is time for you to speak. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Ms. Moore.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mia Moore, and I'm a resident of Montpelier, obviously. I want to say, first of all, thank you to all of you for your efforts and your time in serving our town. It's very much appreciated. I have, for the past 5.5 years, been serving on our school board. And so my comments tonight are definitely from my position as a resident and a taxpayer, not as a board member, but they're informed by the experience and knowledge I've gleaned from my board service. Just a little background, Vermont residents pay both school and municipal property taxes. I'm sure you all already know that. The school tax rate and the amount that it increases each year is tied to per pupil spending. And that's the amount of money needed on average per student to run a district. In Montpelier Roxbury, our district, our per pupil spending is pretty average compared to other districts in the state. We're just above the median, and we get great results with that. Our students are getting better and better at literacy and math each year. We have a robust community-based learning program, a better than state average graduation rate. It's really remarkable. And as much as the governor likes to say that out of control school spending is driving up costs, a big reason for the school tax rates increasing is a decreasing enrollment of Vermont students. Our district is faring better than many other districts, but we do have slightly declining enrollment. The numbers play out over the next 6 years that we project about a 7% decrease overall in total enrollment. And I wanted to share all of this because the Country Club Road project is not only a chance to increase the tax base of our town, it's also a major opportunity to increase enrollment in our schools. And more students means that our per pupil spending will stay steady, even as costs like health insurance soar, which will stabilize our tax rates. And perhaps even more importantly for families in our town and those who are looking to move here, growing enrollment means that we can sustain and even expand the great educational programming that Montpelier Roxbury is known for. And that would be a real benefit to all of us, as public education is the foundation of our democracy. So thank you very much for all of the work that's gone into this and for your consideration of this important decision tonight.
Thank you so much for your comments. Mr. Kelman.
I just have a question. This motion and this negotiation is only about the housing portion of Country Club Road. Is that correct? It does not address all the rest of the acreage, recreation, natural areas, etc. Who is going to be dealing with that? When and how? What is the relationship between the housing negotiation and the rest of that property?
You did have a nice list of things that tonight's topic does not, we're not necessarily, we don't have to get into a back and forth. If you want to look at it and maybe come back during discussion, we've
Well,
heard
we
your
can
question.
share what the development agreement will address, and I think maybe Kelly or Stephanie could make sure that is accurate, but what I had and what I understand is the development agreement will address land disposition, infrastructure, housing commitments, environmental protections, public amenities, and performance milestones. And so I don't know if there was anything missing from that list that could be added, but that is what my understanding was.
And in any case, tonight's motion will be to authorize staff to enter into negotiation, not to finalize a deal of any kind. Do you want to add something?
Sure, I can just add that there will be a large balance of the property that is not involved in this negotiation at all, that the city will retain its authority and planning and decision-making and opportunities over into the future.
Great. Anyone else in the room like to, Mr. Moore? Oh, so hold on one second.
I would just add, Peter, that recreation was one of the original purposes for purchasing the property, and we bore that strongly in mind as we reviewed and evaluated the proposals, and we believe that the DEW proposal did the best job of acknowledging and preserving the future of future use of that property for recreation as well as housing.
Thank you for
Sorry,
that.
Jeff.
Mr. Moore, come on.
Good evening, James Moore, live here in Montpelier, and I've appreciated your presentation and appreciated your service, so thank you, council member. It was nearly 4.5 years ago that the voters of Montpelier voted to buy this property. And one thing that I've learned in real estate development is it is never a straight line. As much as you go in with one idea, it seems rare, if not impossible, to come out the other end with the same result. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of that context and say, when you hit one of these milestones, I think it's worth celebrating. And so I applaud the work and the time that you all have put in, really executing on what the voters voted millions of dollars to be spent towards. I think it's got great potential for our community at large. And then also there was a little bit of conversation earlier tonight about accountability and executing. And it's not always perfect. It almost never is, but you're keeping the train moving forward by supporting the vote tonight, allowing our city to make this negotiation happen. And I think that's the right path. I'm excited that it's a local contractor as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Anyone else in the room? All right, we're going to move to Zoom. I first saw Ms. Messing's hand and then Connor Kennedy's hand. So Deborah Messing, go ahead, please. You'll need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Deborah Messing. I live in Montpelier, and I'm speaking for myself and my husband, Bob. First of all, I wanted to commend the subcommittee for all their hard work. I can't imagine that you would have signed on to this had you known there was going to be 29 meetings going forward, but you did a great job and thank you. In our letter to the Housing Subcommittee, urging them to select DEW, we wrote that DEW's plan had a much better mix of housing types than Chinburg's, but that aspect could be improved. So their first phase, as far as we know, includes a majority of owned homes, but only about 10 single family or duplex homes. And we would like the city to negotiate that this be expanded, this number be expanded to meet the pressing needs of young families and workforce residents and downsizers and others. Fortunately, DEW has indicated flexibility in this regard. Also, many community members want their voices heard going forward to reflect the goals expressed in March. We suggest that DEW be required to attend a listening session early on to and listen to what people ask for and produce a new site plan before any actual design and permitting begin. There's also concern about the planning committee alone representing the city. And to address this concern, we would like the city to establish a steering committee to interact with DEW, which would include 1 or 2 community representatives. That's all. Thank you very much.
Well said, Ms. Messing. Thank you very much for your comments. Exactly 2 minutes. Amazing. Mr. Kennedy.
Thanks for the time, everybody. This is pretty exciting. As Deb and Bob just said, 29 subcommittee meetings to get here. It's been a long time. And I really think it's time for Montpelier to actually do this. I really hope, I think about this as a renter and talking to other people in town, for those that own homes, like we're open to this new age of Montpelier and what it looks like. Mia said it earlier, and thank you, Mia, for all you do for the school board in Roxbury, Montpelier. But like, we're in trouble if we don't bring on new housing. We're losing across the state, but especially here in Montpelier, which I think is like an incredible place to live. So if we're losing, what are other places doing? And they're actually building housing. Barry's building housing. Everyone around us is building housing. This is an awesome, awesome opportunity for us to build housing. I would just add that as we go through this process, let's think about not how this is going to change our community, but just how it can like bolster our community and like make it a better place for all of us. It's not going to upend everything. It's just going to make it better. So I think all of you, I can't believe, like, Adrian, I read your interview. Thank you for your service. A lot of these people did this for nothing, and got us to this point. And I would really, really hope that we don't take a step back and we move forward in this initiative. Mr. Anderson mentioned it before, so I'll use this opportunity every time. Shout out Another Way. They're the best. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else either in the room or on Zoom that would like to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment on this agenda item. At this point, I would entertain a motion before we move into debate and discussion to accept the recommendation of the subcommittee and authorize staff to enter into negotiations with DEW. Is there such a motion? I don't believe the subcommittee is precluded from making the motion, but I'm just, Councilor Brown.
I move to authorize the city manager to enter into exclusive negotiations with DEW Properties for the redevelopment of the Country Club Road property, with any resulting letter of intent and/or development agreement returning to the city council for approval prior to execution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cohn. Is there any discussion or debate on this topic? Councilor Brown.
I just want to say thank you all for all the work that you did on this. I'm really, really happy to be at this point to be able to say Yahoo. We entrusted you with an incredible amount of work and responsibility, and you really came through for us. And I just want to say how personally grateful I am that I could just pop in every now and again on your meetings and stuff and see what you're doing, and that you kept us very well informed. And I felt very confident that we had left this decision in really, really good hands. And so thank you. I appreciate it.
Councilor Sheridan. Thank you, Councilor Brown.
Yeah, I also want to say, that's a lot of meetings. I mean, believe me, I've been served almost 14 years. I know what a lot of meetings are. And so that was really a great job to just have that many meetings. I mean, I was kind of astounded to know the final number, but that is really dedication, because we all know how much you get paid to do that. So thank you for your work. And I would just like to say one personal thing. Hello, Don. It's been a long time. We go way back, and good to see you here.
Hey, Jim. We go back to high school. Long time.
Yeah, good to see you, Don. Thank
Good
you.
to see you, Jim.
Councilor Cohen.
And I also want to thank everyone, city councilors, city staff, and everyone help to bring us this point. And if we can really move forward with this, I think it will create more opportunities for all of us to focus on new projects, which will be great because we've been working on this such a long time. I think when we feel that, yeah, we are doing something good with this project, then we can really focus on other things, because we need a lot of things to work on. So thank you again.
Great. Councilor Alfano.
Yeah, I just wanted to once again acknowledge and thank the city staff for all the help. I mean, Evelyn was at every one of those 29 meetings, waiting for us to finally be done. And to my fellow subcommittee members, you remember all the work you did that was not in meeting time, that was in preparation for meeting time. So there was a lot involved. And I also want to acknowledge the valuable help that we received from Stephanie and Brian at Whitenburg, both of whom know the lay of the land. And it was nice to have people who had been there before helping us and pointing us in the right direction. So thanks to them. And finally, thanks to all the input from city committee chairs and residents of Montpelier, who really sort of flooded our email with wonderful opinions and comments about our work. Couldn't have done it without you.
Well, I don't want to be left out of the thank you train. So I also want to thank Executive Suite and Penrose and Chinberg for also being part of this process. That diversity of ideas, I know, really informed the whole conversation, and we wouldn't be where we are without their contributions, as well as everybody from the community who showed up to however many public input sessions and visioning sessions that we've had over the years. Will remind us that this thing ain't over. There's still a long road in front of us, but this is definitely a huge milestone for us that is worth celebrating. And as a community, we've been pedaling uphill for such a long time. This feels like a really good opportunity to kind of take a breath and celebrate a win. So let's make sure that we have a win. The motion before us and the second is to authorize the city manager to enter into exclusive negotiations with DEW Properties for the redevelopment of the Country Club Road property, with any resulting letter of intent and or development agreement returning to city council for approval prior to execution. All in favor of passing this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Let's have a round of applause. Unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. What's that? At this point, if Mr. Wells or Ms. Clark, if you would like to make any comment, I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm not asking you to speak, but I would certainly like to give you the opportunity if you would like to. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I would love to make a comment. I don't know if I go first or Stephanie does.
Go ahead, Mr. Wells.
Well, I just want to thank you, and we're excited. I grew up in Montpelier, so this is kind of a special project for me, and a good endeavor for us to undertake. And we're really excited. We're ready to hit the ground running. The hard work's ahead of us. We know that. We all know that. But we'll all be standing proud sometime very soon. So thank you again, and appreciate your confidence in DEW properties, and we'll do what is expected and what we need to do to make this thing happen.
Thank you for the words. Thank you for the work you've done to date, and thank you for all the work you're going to do. Ms. Clark, would you like to add anything?
Does Mr. Wells in the room want to add before I add?
Does Mr. Wells in the room want to add? He's giving a head shake there.
Okay. I appreciate him showing up, and Don, I think that is a further testimony to the decision you made. I want to specifically call out Evelyn and Matt Jelasik for all their work on this. Kelly, Chris Lumbra, who had to pitch in a bunch along the process, as well as Micah Kelly, obviously. So, and then to my subcommittee, who I will say this is an over and beyond group. Your town did something that was pretty spectacular and robust. It's not something I've ever seen before. And I may or may not have shrieked when Adrienne told me she resigned very loudly on the phone. But I will say that the fact that she told me at the same time this was culminating is the point that she stuck it out to do this incredible piece of work. So that's really cool. You guys are very lucky as a community. So thank you, everybody. Good job. As Don said, the hard work's ahead of us, but if we don't celebrate these little milestones in development, you're never going to win. That's why we're in it for the only way you can get through it all and to stick out these hard problems to solve is by celebrating little wins along the way. So thank you all. I look forward to the next
We
step.
consider this a big win, just so you know.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I think all of us in the room also consider this a very big win. Let's have one more round of applause just because I feel it. And with that, we're closing agenda item number 9, and we are still, number 11, sorry. Sorry, what?
We have a negotiating team that needs to be put together.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I just want to make sure we tie that up because, the recommendation I believe is for, White and Burke, the attorneys, DRM that you all authorized us to hire earlier on in this process to represent the city in negotiating this agreement. Myself, Mike Miller, and then a counselor is, I think, the recommended team to negotiate moving forward. I know that we're ready to get started as long as you all identify who you would like or other conversation around that negotiating team to start moving forward.
Councilor Doyle?
I think that is the appropriate makeup, and I have not directly talked to Sal about this, but I think he would be an excellent representative on the negotiating team as head of the subcommittee, and his performance is a reflection of leadership. We've gotten this far under Sal's leadership, and I would love to see him continue in that
I
role.
was going to say the same about you.
I beat you to it.
Yeah, so, as long as it's not 29 additional meetings, I suppose.
I don't believe we have enough weeks between now and October when we were hoping to bring this back to you all, so.
That sounds like a nomination. If called to serve, would you be willing to serve?
I suppose I would, yes.
Thank you, Sal.
Do we need a second and all that stuff, or is that done? That sounds done to me. Any objections to that?
Great.
All right, without objection.
Good.
Great, all right. Thank you for that. I would have glossed right over it. All right, on to item number 12. Thank you, everybody, for staying. We're still 15 minutes ahead. The council vacancy appointment process discussion. Would you like to tee this up for us, Andrew Perry? Thank you.
Well, as we all know, that now that Adrienne has put the dot on this big milestone ever, today will be her last meeting, as she has proffered her resignation from council, and therefore you all are in a position to appoint someone. The charter requires council to appoint someone to replace her until the next election, which will be starts in January, culminates on town meeting day of 2027, to serve the remaining year of Adrian's District 1 post. And then the year following that, the next person would run for a 2-year position at that point. And so I'm looking for input from you all. My recommendation would be you direct staff to advertise for this position and request interested, eligible citizens submit a letter of interest and a resume. And we bring those back to you on August 12th for your review. You can let us know if you wish to interview people. We can obviously keep you posted on the number of applications that we're receiving, and get further direction that way. But I just want to acknowledge Adrian before we do all that business and just say thank you. It's been wonderful to work with you. Thank you for hiring me, and yeah, look forward to spending other time with you here in the community.
So just one point of correction or clarification. I think you said that someone would run for a 2-year term afterwards. If that's what I heard, I think someone would run to fill her seat for the one remaining year, and then.
And then it's the ordinary course of elections.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
All right. So I think the requested action is to, first of all, does anybody have any clarifying questions or comments before we move on?
Yeah.
Councilor Sheridan.
I went through this once. It was unfortunately in my first year when we had a counselor pass away in November. And we were cognizant of two things. One, we were just about to enter the budget. So we kind of put out a plea for maybe a former counselor who might finish just the year. Because if we have 3 people apply and they all express a desire to run for the 1-year seat, and we pick one, we're going to have 2 very angry people at us because we're giving somebody a leg up. So it might be nice if a former counselor said, I will fill it out till March, but I do not plan to run again, and we don't end up giving somebody an advantage over somebody else. But we may not get some. We were lucky. The guy I replaced, it was my first year, he said he would come back and do it. He lived in the district because the counselor was in my district who passed. And he finished out the year and said he had no intention of doing it again, or he would have stayed in his seat. So we were handed up something on a silver platter to do it. But, it's tough to bring somebody in and know that, very soon we're going to be going into a budget season. And so I just want to say, if we could find somebody who could fit that, we might leave it open for those that wanted to run without giving somebody a leg up.
Okay, thank you for that point. That's a good point. Any other counselors have questions or comments about this before we open up for public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the room that would like to speak to this item? Mr. Kelman, go ahead, please. 2 minutes.
Peter Kelman, Montpelier. Jim's right. This happened in District 2. When Ann Watson left, an appointment was made, and it virtually guaranteed that that person who was going to finish out the term was going to continue. And it does give it gives not just a leg up, it's a bad look. So if you can find somebody who's willing to fill in, as Jim suggests, I think you should make a real effort to try to find a former counselor or somebody who says, I'm just going to do it until March, period.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the room? Anyone online like to speak to this? I think that regardless of who we find, the process is likely to be similar, that staff is asking that we open it up for folks to express their interest with a letter of interest and a resume. We should also individually reach out to former counselors if we think that that's the best thing and get them to put their names forward, and then we'll come back and discuss what names we have to discuss. Judging from the uncontested races we've had recently, I don't know that we're going to have a huge pool of people fighting for the job, but I in some ways hope that we do. Right. So is there a motion to authorize staff to begin this process?
So moved.
Just for clarity, can you say that in a motion? Sorry.
Sure.
You stick with it. Thank you.
I would like to authorize staff to advertise the position to get letters of interest of citizens who live in District 3. I mean, who live in, I think that should be stated because people might get confused. They have to live in District 1.
Yep.
To come forward, so.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second, Councilor Alfano. Thank you. Is there any discussion or debate? The motion is to authorize staff to advertise for letters of interest and resumes of citizens of Montpelier who live in District 1 to potentially serve in the seat being vacated by Councilor Gill. Any discussion, debate? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously passes. Thank you very much. All right, we are on to item number 13 at 9:36. The homelessness update. Manager Curry.
Okay. Okay, as we continue to collaborate with partners and follow up on your direction from the August 29th special meeting, I wanted to just bring an update relative to the downstairs City Hall space for overnight shelter. We have, so we discussed doing potential upgrade to include a second egress that we think is, just several $1,000s, not a big expense to respond to some of the requests from the volunteer group that worked down there. Last year, we received a conditional approval letter, which is attached in the packet from the state fire warden about the use of the space. The conditions are identical from last year's. The only change is the date, because last year's date started in January and went through April. This starts November 1st and goes through April. We continue to work with partners about management around that. Happy to take any questions if there are any on that. We additionally finally were able to connect with End Homelessness Vermont, and we had a good conversation with Brenda Siegel. She spoke with us about the mobile health idea that they have been exploring through grant opportunities, which essentially would be nursing services that would go out into the field and provide care to homeless individuals, particularly with high acute needs. That is the population that they serve, and provide nursing and care services in the field, which is, not something that exists currently. And which, from what I understand from our EMT folks, generally they are responding to individuals when they've reached such a level of need that they have to be transported. And so this would be an earlier, more proactive type of wellness response. And so we're just beginning kind of collaborative conversations around how, how we would connect with them and if they continue to pursue grant opportunities around that. So that's an update on that conversation. I know Matt Jalisek met with some of the peer outreach folks today and continue to sort of talk about this picnic table location and are starting to really hone in, I think, on some areas where we could provide day use support. And I think that is it for right now. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions from council? Councilor Sheridan.
I don't have a question. I just want to say that we had a homeless meeting on Monday and we moved it to the night and we had no problem acquiring a quorum. So it seemed to fit well. We're going to move it back a half an hour, which is fine, 5:30 instead of 5, but it was one of the more, and Carrie can speak to this too, is one of the more robust meetings we've had, with some positive results. And I'd really like to thank the work that our staff person, Matt, is putting into it. He had a lot to say at that meeting. Zach ran a good meeting. He was pretty much spot on. And I think, meeting in the night, it was a good idea to change it out. And I think that you're going to see more from us, hopefully going forward.
Great, thank you. That's very encouraging. Councilor Alfano.
Could I just ask a question to follow up on the City Hall space? Is there anything except the lack of air conditioning that would prevent that space from being used as a cooling space that you could, was it discussed at all with the fire marshal or?
I would have to go and chat with our building inspector who did that tour with
okay.
the fire marshal on that. I think there were, right now the conditional approval is for later in the year, not for this current time. So that would need to be revised. And I think because we didn't have heating space or cooling,
Space, sure.
yeah,
Okay.
cooling resources for that.
Good, thanks.
Mr. Gillespie.
We also don't have a provider who is seeking to use that space with us.
You someone like Montpelier Cold to run it, you mean?
Right.
Right. Mr. Gillespie.
Just coming to add that. The problem is not the space. The problem is having somebody who's going to man.
Who's going to be there?
Yeah. Take care of the hours. That's the only concern.
Okay, great, thanks, man.
Is it the case that they have not stepped forward to offer that, or has the question been asked and they said they cannot?
We have not asked for that because this room is open as a cooling center during the day or on the hot days. It hasn't seemed to be necessary, but we could ask.
I was thinking of overnight use, the way we do with the cold.
Yeah, and that would be a volunteer question. And then we'd have to have an MOU, which would be the same MOU that we use during the winter. We could arrange that for sure if we needed it.
Yeah.
Even if it was just episodic.
Also, I'd just like to thank staff that have stayed here until 8 p.m. to keep this space open during the times that it has been used as a cooling space. Though we have had people avail themselves of it, and that is above and beyond for staff to do. So thank you very much. Anything else on this topic? We are in the practice of holding public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Mr. Whitaker.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the council to answer the question of when are we going to see the plan that's required in the Montpelier City Plan that the city manager is assigned to complete for camping spaces, for daytime places. You shouldn't even be talking about a shelter in the basement without putting a shower in there. But yet this dysfunction just pervades this, a picnic table is an example of how evasive and head in the sand this discussion is. The Matt spoke at the housing committee, but about a proposal to create a 30-person shelter, but we've got twice that many people outside or more, probably 3 times that many people. And how is a negotiation with city staff going on behind closed doors that cannot consult or doesn't have direction on the parameters from the homeless committee? It's like, what's the purpose of the homeless committee if the city staff and the city manager's not going to write the plan she's required to write, and a negotiation with a potential building owner is going to happen without any input, probably without a shower, probably without, these are tough questions, but I've sat through 7 years of y'all not dealing with it, and it doesn't reflect well on you, So why don't you answer those questions?
I'd like to remind council and staff that public comment is not a two-way conversation, but if anyone would like to speak or answer questions, you certainly may. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on this topic? Seeing none at this time, public comment is closed on this agenda item. There's no action requested or required on this agenda item. Am I correct about that? Okay. Thank you. At this time, we're moving on to agenda item number 15. It's the consent agenda.
No, we have committee appointments.
We have committee, oh, sorry, committee appointments. Thank you. It is 9:44.
Okay, I can just go through these. You have a single applicant for a vacancy on the Complete Streets Committee, Isaac Padberg. You have two committee applications for committees to the Recreation Advisory Board, McKenna Goodman and Jared Blum. And there are multiple vacancies, so there's 5 seats. There are currently 2 vacancies on the rec board. This would fill those 2 vacancies if you approved both of these. The answers to each application are included in the individual item or individual cover sheets, and I recommend you deal with them one at a time.
Is it, as this is one agenda item with 3 separate motions, is it appropriate or inappropriate, John, that we hold public comment on this topic as a whole, or do we need to hold public comment on each appointment separately?
Or just one agenda item?
Okay. Then before we move forward to motions, are there any clarifying questions about any of these candidates or what we're doing here? Counselor Gill?
I'll just, my parting words, you can do whatever you want with it, but one of the things that I did move forward talking about committees was the committee policy. So as we're thinking about adding new members to these committees, I encourage the council to dust that policy off because we do not have a policy in place for committee structure. So I would just encourage you all to look at that again and think about how do we want to manage the committees in an effective and efficient way and responsible way so that when these lovely volunteers join these committees, that there's a plan in place for them and accountability to the council. So
That's a good call out. I think we have seen in recent days some good examples of very functional committees, the Housing Committee, the Public Arts Commission that we talked about tonight. And but we're also seeing that there's a lot of dust off and cleanup that needs to happen. And some of that is happening piece by piece. Manager Curry, this was a broader topic that was brought up earlier, and I know that you've had a very full plate, but can you give us an idea of sort of where we are on that topic?
It is still on my plate. It has been pushed a little to the edge by some other things, but I am endeavoring to get this to the committee chairs for their input in August and to bring back to you all in September.
Thank you for that, Councilor Gill. Any other questions or comments generally before we open up for public comment on this agenda item as a whole? All right, anyone in the public would like to speak to any of these 3 appointments? Seeing no one in the room, is there anyone online? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. All right, at this point, let's go through them one at a time. Hopefully everyone has had the chance to review the applications and the information. Let's start with Isaac Padberg and Complete Streets. I would entertain a motion to appoint.
I move to appoint Isaac Padberg to the Complete Streets Committee.
Thank you, Councilor Brown.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Alfano. Is there any discussion or debate on this topic?
I've met Isaac Padberg. He's been at a couple of committee meetings, and I think he'd be a great addition to the committee.
Great, thank you. For what it's worth, I appreciate the sense of humor that is in his answers.
Me too.
No other discussion or debate? All in favor of appointing Isaac Padberg to the Complete Streets Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously passed. Thank you. And thank you, Isaac, for your future service. We're moving on to Jared Blum and the Recreation Advisory Board. Is there a motion to appoint?
I'll move to appoint him.
Thank you, Counselor Sheridan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Alfano. Is there any discussion or debate on the topic? The motion is to appoint Jared Bloom to the Recreation Advisory Board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously appointed. Thank you, Jared Bloom, for your future service. And finally, McKenna Goodman to the Recreation Advisory Board. Is there such a motion?
To be fair, I'll move that appointment too. See,
Okay.
they're both on the same committee.
Okay, the motion is to appoint McKenna Goodman to the Recreation Advisory Board. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Alfano. Is there any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all in favor of appointing McKenna Goodman to the Recreation Advisory Board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? McKenna Goodman is unanimously appointed to the Recreation Advisory Board. Thank you, McKenna, for your future service. All right. We are on to item number 15, the consent agenda. I feel like when it happened, I've forgotten how to do it now that it's at the end. I feel like we've been in the practice of saying without objection, we're going to approve it, but can I just have a motion to approve the consent, to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
I'll move that we adopt the
Okay,
consent agenda as presented.
thank you, Counselor Sheridan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Alfano. Oh, there's a rhythm going on here. Any discussion or debate on the consent agenda? All in favor of approving the consent agenda as proposed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda unanimously passes. We're now on to other business. Do we take public comment on other business? I don't remember anymore. No, okay. Is there any other business?
I would just like to
Counselor Sharon, go ahead.
ask, Kelly, I didn't see in your report on the next agenda what I asked about.
Where I didn't report out on the next agenda.
It wasn't on the weekly report though, where you have at the bottom.
We have it on our list.
Okay, thank you.
Use your microphone, please, Kelly.
Sorry,
Thank you.
we have it on our list.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor Sheridan. I don't know, I think this is the right place to bring it up. I think we've heard tonight about several issues that have been part of previous councils' sort of bigger visioning efforts that in the past have not always had the required follow through to get us there, specifically net zero goals or what have you. I'm not asking for an answer or to put you on the spot, Manager Curry, but it feels like those are things that, I mean, there's sort of a recurring theme of this is a good idea, let's chase this goal, and then the next steps don't materialize, and then it doesn't come up again for conversation until we realize that we failed in a step. I'm not sure what the proper process is to bring something like that, you know, as it does it become a motion, or is that something that you can bring to us to propose a potential timeline that is realistic for us to be able to revisit some of these bigger ideas? You don't have to answer. Counselor Gill.
Happy to. The things I was thinking about, and Mark and Palin started this work for our onboarding process. And I think a gap and an opportunity for future councils would be what I never had. So I was brand new to the council, brand new to city government. And what I wish I had was an onboarding, an orientation to, what are the policies that currently exist? What are we working towards? And I think aligning that to the strategic plan, which hopefully they all are, right? Having that crosswalk, which I think that's what we did, but having that like visual of where are we in that performance metric of reaching those goals, having some type of dashboard, right? Like we approved net zero in 2018 and 2021. Our goal was by 2030 to reach 100%, emission free. So in 2026, where are we? Where are we towards that goal? Ben mentioned we've done all these initiatives, we've worked on the wastewater, but I, as a new counselor, had no idea that was a policy that we're working towards and where we were as that progression. So I think it would be very nice as one of the issues of this structure of government is that we turn over every 2 years. And so, and we're not going to change that, but I think we could have an opportunity to orientate new city council onto the policies, the progress towards the completion of that policy, and having some type of visual dashboard of what other councils agree to. And then having a decision, is that what's still relevant to this day in 2026? Because I'm sure there's other policies out there that were agreed upon 10 years ago that are still in the books that we may or may not be following. So I, as a city councilor, have really no idea what we're working towards. Like, we don't get updates on those metrics. I don't know where we are. And I think that's definitely an opportunity for like improvement moving forward. That I just see as a gap that could be worked on in your very busy schedules.
Counselor Brown.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I- When I started on the council, I had a very extensive onboarding process with the city manager at the time. And also at that time, we were getting regular updates on the strategic plan, and including with like a table of here's where we are and the progress. This has been on hold. This is why. This is how far this got, kind of thing that you would probably have loved. So I'm sure those records are somewhere, and we have a model for doing it. And you know, it's a different city manager, and you will do things your way, but just to know that we're not starting from nowhere with that kind of a thing.
Well, and if I could just be responsive, I mean, I do think you have some of that already built, because I know I looked to those things during my interview process relative to where you were at on certain elements of your strategic plan. And, you know, I think that it just has not been utilized in the course of this whole transition. You know, and I would just say, I mean, the structure of government is set up for some reasons for this exact dilemma, right? Like, you cannot obligate a future city council for budget decisions, right? Like, the voters can authorize bonding, you can move some projects forward that way, but like, you can't obligate what you want to see in the future unless you continue to be on this board. And in my just reflection on some of the decisions that you've had to wrestle with, like these are what I call right versus right issues. You know, you are balancing values that are competing against each other in some ways. And that is how that has showed up in the budget, I think, with, you know, not necessarily just a rejection of net zero. It's more a decision about what your, you know, your budgetary authority is, and how much budget you want to put on the taxpayers. You know, that is also a right decision. And that's where I think that these tensions kind of show up in what's difficult, because you have to make decisions in your practical world according to ideals that are set forwards in plans. And that's where they come down to how you're going to balance those out. And some days you balance a certain set of values over another set of values, and that doesn't make any of them wrong. You know, it makes the voters accountable to whether you're getting that balance right. But, you know, I think this is exactly why they have to be the decisions of this board, and why staff can only recommend to you based on how you've expressed your values or how you've expressed your budget preferences on bringing those forward. And the trade-offs are what they are. I hope that's helpful, but.
Counselor Sheridan.
I just wanted to add that way back in '87, when I went to a town meeting to support somebody to be on the select board, and somehow ended up on the select board myself, much to the non-wishes of my wife at the time. I went to the VLCT trainings because I didn't know anything about politics. I didn't even go there to become a selectman. I just ended up one because nobody wanted it. Somebody nominated me and I ended up with it. So you can go to VLCT, where they will teach you your powers, your limitations, what it means to be a public servant and account. And I took all the classes I could to learn what the position meant because I didn't have a clue. And it doesn't tell you what you're stepping into in the individual town or anything. It just gives you a broader view of here's what you can do, here's what you can't, here's your limitations, here's your what you're endowed in powers. It just kind of gave you that overview. So you kind of went into it with some knowledge of, oh yeah, it doesn't make me invincible. I can do everything. And so I think that we should always tell a new counselor that VLCT offers classes that can help orientate you into the world of politics, not necessarily into the world of Montpelier politics, politics in general, which really, I can say honestly, helped me.
Thanks, Jim. I didn't mean to open up a can of worms here, and clearly, you know, where we are as in relation to goals that were set long before you'd ever possibly heard of our town, or before I have lived here. Obviously, it's not something that's been on your plate. Curious about how we're moving forward. Thank you, Chief. And let's move on. Council reports. Let's start over here and work our way to Adrian.
Just three quick things. One, thank you, Adrian, for your service and your leadership. It's been a pleasure serving with you in District 1. So thanks for all you've done. Two, I just want to thank the whole council. Like that Country Club Road vote, like we do, it's a long road ahead. And the way we're going to get there is by not necessarily being unified on everything, but having a shared vision and working hard together. And it just means a lot. I think that was a unanimous vote. It's really great to see. The last thing I would just want to say, in case people are like wondering what's going on with the federal building, you know, that auction, there is an online auction available right now that's going on the GSA website. It closes on August 5th. You know, there is a local development corporation that has been formed, 87 State Street Local Development Corporation. It's an incorporated Vermont nonprofit. Kelly and I both serve on that. And, you know, we are hoping to participate in some way in the auction to help shape a positive community-minded outcome for the building and to try and ensure that it doesn't end up just a vacant white elephant in our downtown. And so, you know, I think there's more news to come, but, you know, I think right now it's just kind of wait and see. So far, there are no bids on the building. That's frankly, I think, to be expected the way these auctions work, apparently. But we're really hopeful that a responsible, well-capitalized investor is going to pursue the building and make something good happen there.
Because people wait till the last minute to put in their bid?
Yes.
Right. Councilor Cohen.
Yeah, I have no reports, just, I just want to say thank you to Adrienne, for her contribution too, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sheridan.
I not only want to say that I really appreciated serving with you, Adrian. I really appreciated getting to know you as a person beyond this room. I was at your house one time. I met your husband. This is all more than just serving as fellow counselors. We're people that live in the same city and, you know, have common goals and stuff like that. So I really appreciated getting to know you as a person as much as I did serving with you on the council. I mean, I'm sorry to see you go, but I understand it's a tough job and it's a lot of commitment for somebody with a family, a job and a home. I mean, I'm a retired old fart that has the time to do these things and so it's not quite the same for me. And I always wonder how anybody with a family and a home and a job has the time to do all the reading. So thank you for all the time you did put in. And so.
Thank you. Councilor Alfano.
I really just want to thank the non-subcommittee members of the council for the trust you put in us, really. I mean, it was a big responsibility and we took it extremely seriously. And I just really appreciated the support that you gave us through the whole process. So thank you for that. And Adrian, thank you for everything. It wouldn't have been the same without you.
We got to make her cry. You're the last one.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
I'm just remembering when I first ran for city council, and it was the same election when the Country Club Road purchase was approved, the same town meeting, and I was very excited to vote for it. I was very excited it happened, and then everything we've gone through since then, it's been an amazing, unpredictable journey. I never would have thought I would have, wouldn't have had any idea how it was going to go, actually, really, but I'm so happy that we're here at this point. This just feels like an unbelievable milestone, and I'm so encouraged for the future of Montpelier and so grateful to all of the counselors and the staff and the people who submitted proposals and the members of the public and all the work that it took to get here. And I know it's just one step and we've got a long way to go. But thank you. And thank you so much, Adrian. I will miss working with you and really glad you've been here. Yeah. I appreciate everything that you've done.
All right, Counselor Gill.
I have 3 minutes of everyone's time. 3.5 minutes just to have my parting words and to reflect on my tenure. So I wrote everything down so I didn't forget. So as I conclude my service on city council, it's been 28 months, pretty short compared to Jim, but I feel like it's been a lifetime for me. I want to leave with optimism. So I am an eternal optimist. That is who I am. And I truly believe that our city is on the right path. Over the past 2.5 years, I've learned that local government is incredibly complex. Many of the challenges we face today just didn't happen overnight. This is not like a thing that just happened. They were a result of just many things that have built upon each other and decades of thinking of leadership practices, different agreements that our city has been involved in. Just, you all know I love documentation. So inconsistent documentation and processes, right? Processes within government that just, for many reasons have never been fully built or maintained. But as we move forward, I think we have an opportunity to be great in all these areas. And so when we think of strong organizations, they're built on transparency, accountability, clear policies, well-managed contracts, documented procedures, and thoughtful succession planning. These are not exciting topics. I get that. Like, this is things that make people fall asleep, but it's really the foundation of effective government and really organizations. They ensure that when elected officials like me or staff move on, the knowledge and systems still remain in place. No organization should depend on one person holding all this information. So I know firsthand that our new city manager, Kelly, is committed to building these systems. That's why, one of the reasons why I hired her was a big plus for me. She has the opportunity to strengthen our operations, to formalize our processes and improve documentation and help position Montpelier for long-term success. That's not going to happen overnight, but it's important work, and I believe that it's the right direction for our city. So I spent a lot of time. This was not an easy decision to make. I spent countless nights, honestly, not sleeping over this and just reflecting over what I've done in 28 months. And I do leave with a deep sense of gratitude and pride. So together, this group hired Kelly as our next city manager. I think that was a huge accomplishment. We worked with our planning director and staff to adopt a new city plan that is award-winning. I mean, that was a huge accomplishment. I know there was lots of back and forth and painful discussions, but we did it because we wanted to make it perfect. We did work together to establish a strategic planning process. We had a strategic planning retreat. We really worked on building our goals and what we wanted to focus on, which I think was great. And most recently, we worked on our performance management system with the city manager to help, formalize those performance measures, which hasn't been done. Like, I think it's incredible that we did that together. We work to support the local option sales tax, which is also huge, to increase the funding for our city. Palin and I worked on the child care task force, which was really fun. I worked with our rec department and Montpelier Live to launch Winterfest and Mudfest, which I hope it continues. I was thinking about that today. I'm like, do I volunteer for those?
Yes.
I was like, can I say no? I'm not sure. I think I'm not capable of saying no, but I hope they continue. They're great. I was also proud to serve with Palin on the Economic Development Subcommittee and strengthening our downtown. And of course, the most monumental one is Country Club Road. I mean, that was the biggest amount of time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears went into that project to get to where we are today. So these accomplishments remind me that when we work together, we do make meaningful progress, and it's really something that makes me really proud. And I want to say something just beyond this room to our community. Maybe they're listening out there, maybe they'll hear this at some other point, but I want our community to stay engaged. I talked to my neighbors and I said, the most important thing you can do is get involved in local government. We can't change what's happening around the world. We can't change, what's happening at our federal government too much, but we absolutely have an impact on our local government. And I try to remind them that this is where you can make a positive impact. And so I also want to just acknowledge our city staff, our volunteers, our council members. Everyone in this room dedicates countless hours to serving Montpelier because we care deeply about our community. And we are all human. Sometimes people forget we're not just like robots up here, and that we do make mistakes. But in my experience, they also care deeply about getting things right and learning from mistakes. So in my last couple paragraphs, construction criticism makes us better. Encouragement gives people the energy to keep doing work, and we really need both. I hope more people share the successes they see. I hope that they thank our staff, support our volunteers, and recognize the progress being made. Positivity isn't about ignoring problems. It's about creating an environment where people have the confidence and the motivation to actually solve them. So to future council members, whoever sits in this lovely seat next to my friend Carrie over here and everyone else around the room, I hope that they lead with kindness. I hope that they lead with curiosity, integrity, and I hope that we continue to ask hard questions. It's not to be, to have someone not doing their job, but it's our job to ask those questions and to get down to some root cause and expect accountability. So I hope that our future councils keep the focus on performance, transparency, and continuous improvement. Never stop looking for ways to modernize how the city operates because our residents deserve a government that's effective, responsive, and that we're prepared for the future. Finally, in closing, sorry this is so long, but I wanted to get it all out there. I wanted to thank my residents of District 1. They trusted me to serve them and bring their voice to this table. It's been honestly one of the greatest moments of my life. While my time on council is ending, I'm not gonna just not volunteer and help out. It's just not who I am. But I leave this role hopeful. I really am confident that the best days are ahead, and I'm excited to watch and cheer. I will be on the sidelines for a little bit, but I'm sure I will volunteer and help when needed. And I'm always around and I can't say no. It's one of my things, but just thank you all for everything. And it's been an honor to work with you all and to get to know you. And I'm sure I'll see you around town.
Well said, Adrian. Before we move to the rest of the reports, some of the things you said just really brought back to me the quotes that I happened to pick for the start of the meeting that you really kind of drove home. And one of them is that alone we can do so little and together we can do so much. I want to just say thank you to you for your service, and we have for you, maybe a little bit late, copies of Robert's Rules of Order in brief for you to.
Is your onboarding.
Just in case.
So we can call you little meetings. Thank you. Wowzers, that's hilarious. It should be given to every city councilor.
Your daughter will take it up.
Thank you all. It's very kind.
Thank you, Adrian. Clerk's report.
Oh, I just thank Adrian for your service. It's been a pleasure, and I sincerely hope you get more and better sleep.
Thank you. Manager's report.
Yes, I just want to call attention to a couple things that we're going to bring forward in forthcoming meetings that I just want to put a plug in for you. So Jim has asked for a conversation around parking and potential looking at the design of the parking at the senior center because of some of the, I think, pressure there is on that space with not enough spots. Also, the Wrightsville Beach Recreation District. This body appoints 2 people to that regional government, and John Copans has resigned, and so that leaves a vacancy. I have requested their bylaws to understand if there's any elements about that recruitment process that we should know, but I will plan to bring that back for further information for you all and on August 12th. And then also, there has been a change in some of the state fire warden rules that affect some ordinances that we have on the books. And so we need to clean those up to align the authorities given to our fire chief with what is now required in state law. And so that bit of just good governance cleanup, but we got to bring those forward. And so just a heads up on that. I'll also let you know we've launched the police department, the police chief recruitment process. So I've been working with the consultant team around that. They are interested in speaking with each of you, I think, to get your input on expectations and desire for a profile around that candidate. And so I will be sharing your contact information with that team. And thank you for your efforts there. And then we have started interviews for our assistant city manager position this week. And so we're moving forward on that, and I'll keep you posted. And I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. I don't think I have anything to add beyond the many words I've already said. So without objection, it is 10:16 on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026. This meeting of Montpelier City Council is hereby adjourned.